I don't know if it's working or not. Test. Yes, it's working. So I think I can mute.
Good evening, Sam and Michelle. We did hear you. And what we do is we ask applicants to just hide their video until we begin the public hearing. Now I cannot hear you, but probably aren't trying to speak to me.
Vera, you feeling better?
Yes, I slept all weekend
Okay, that helps.
and I've been negative right along for COVID, so I guess it was just me.
Colds still happen.
Did you have a good party?
Yeah, we missed you.
I missed it. Really.
So I think we've got everyone except the person who put on the party. Oh, there she is. There she is. We have absolutely everyone, I think, right? The pictures keep jumping around.
I think you do have everyone,
Okay.
except for one alternate.
Jen, you're referring to the alternate that's
Recusing themselves, yes.
vacant. No, Laurel's here.
Oh, Laurel's here? I didn't see her.
I think she has her camera off.
Oh, okay, that's why. All right.
We just have so many people.
Yes, we do. Okay.
Okay, I think we can call this to order. So I call to order the May 16th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 6:02 PM. Members present are Aho Acorsi, Chandy, Cooley, Cotton, DeVivo, Fertoni, Plant, Ward, Manville, and Wooch. I think I saw, have I seen all of those people? Speak up if you're not here. I got Wooch.
Everyone is here, Mr. Chair.
Everyone.
And
Every single person is here. All right.
yes, and for members of the public, if you could just keep your cameras off until we get to the public hearing portion, that would be helpful for the chair as they have some other business to do. Thank you.
Okay, we have minutes from May 2nd.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, neither
Yep.
alternate is seated as you have a full complement of regular
Okay.
members.
Okay, thank you. Sam and Michelle, could you turn your video off just until we get to the public hearing? Thanks. Okay. Linda, why don't you turn yours on so I can see you? Good, thank you. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Ooh. Do I have to start over?
No, because we should have been streaming, I believe, so we should be good. But you
We're
were
good.
called to order at 6:02 PM. All members are present and the two alternates are not seated as a recap for you.
Thank you. Okay, we have minutes from May 2nd.
I don't know if I can't see my, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, I move that Ward moves that they be approved as written.
Okay, moved by Ward,
Plant seconds.
Tony
it.
will second.
okay, second by Plant. Any discussion? All in favor?
Wait, I am sorry, I have some discussion. I'd just like.
Okay, okay, sorry.
That's okay. I'd just like to note that I was absent at that meeting, but I did watch the recording.
Okay, very good.
Paul,
Yes,
I was absent, but I did not watch the meeting, so I'm disqualified from voting.
okay, all right.
Same here. I did not listen to the recording, so I'm disqualifying myself.
Okay. For the remaining members, those in favor? Okay, passes unanimously with 2 abstentions. Okay, there is a zoning agent report. Does anyone have any questions for Jeline? Okay, if not, we can move on to the public hearing. There appears to be some interest in this public hearing.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to do the introduction for all of the hearings scheduled for this evening?
Yes, please. And this is your last chance to open a public hearing.
It is.
Oh,
Oh. As we get, all right. So this, as a reminder to all participants, including members and staff, please state your name before speaking. For those viewing at home on live stream, please understand that there is a 1 to 2 minute time lag due to transmission delays. If you'll be providing verbal testimony during the public hearing, you can call into the meeting at any time. We will take a few minutes after the applicant's presentation to give people time to call in. I will say in this case, given the number of people we have present, I'm not sure if that will be necessary. So folks, because there are folks here to testify already, so we may just move straight into the public testimony portion. The guidelines for this evening's hearings this evening. The purpose of tonight's hearings is to receive relevant information about the proposed applications from the public. Order and decorum shall be maintained at all times during the hearings. The commission reserves the right to adjourn the hearings to another date and time if the discussion becomes unruly and unmanageable. Given the virtual format, we ask that everyone bear with us if we encounter any glitches, if we are unable to overcome technical issues and/or the commission is having difficulty understanding information presented in this format. The hearing will be continued to another meeting. The order of presentations for tonight's hearings will be as follows. First applicant, then public comment in the order of support, opposition, and the last undetermined or request for additional information. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address and any party, group, or organization you represent for the record before beginning your comments. Limit your comments to the subject of the public hearing. Avoid repetition where possible. Summarize reports and letters that are submitted to the commission rather than reading them aloud, as all written information is copied and distributed to members. Direct all questions and comments to the chair. Do not attempt to engage in dialogue with members of the commission, staff, or any other parties to the hearing. Speak clearly to ensure your comments are audible to members of the public watching from home and are recorded. Commission members may ask questions of anyone providing testimony, but will not discuss the relative merits of the application until the hearing is closed. Failure to abide by these policies and procedures may result in a muting of your microphone or in dismissal from the hearing. Instructions on how to participate in the public hearing are listed on the agenda. For those who would like to call in, please call 1-929-205-6099. Enter meeting ID 825-0815-5129 and passcode 735336. Again, that's telephone number 1-929-205-6099, meeting ID 825-0815-5129, and passcode 735336. If you encounter any problems calling into the hearing, please call 860-429-3330 and a staff member will assist you.
Okay, so the public hearing is opened at 6:08 p.m. For a application for a modification to approve special permit for tasting room on property located at 114 Mansfield Hollow Road. All members are present, including alternates, so the alternates are not seated. So now we have Ms. Painter, could you note any communications we have?
Yes, and I also need to read the legal notice for you.
Okay, all right.
The following legal notice was published in the Hartford Courant on May 4th, 2022 and May 11th, 2022. The Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold the following public hearings on Monday, May 16th, 2022 via a web-based virtual meeting to hear comments regarding the following applications. At 6:05 p.m., application for modification to approve special permit for a tasting room on property located at 114 Mansfield Hollow Road, SMNJ LLC applicant, PZC file 1118. I am not going to read the notice for the 6:10 p.m. public hearing because that application has been withdrawn. The remainder of the ad reads as follows. No information from the public shall be received after the close of the public hearings. Additional information regarding these applications is available in the planning office. Paul Aho, Chair, Vera Ward, Secretary.
Thank you. So
In
the floor,
term,
yeah, go ahead.
communications. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right.
So I will note that we have received several communications after the publication of the agenda on Friday. So all communications that were listed on the agenda on Friday, I'm not going to repeat. We have, as I mentioned, received multiple communications. So I'm going to identify the ones that came in after publication of the agenda. So bear with me. We have an email from the Assistant Town Engineer, or memo dated May 16th, 2022. A memo from Wyndham Waterworks dated May 11th, 2022. We have received 4 communications from the applicant, Kirby Mill Winery. And I believe all of them came in today. One was a request for recusal of an alternate. One was a letter to the PZC regarding some communications that had been submitted by residents, a petition in favor of the tasting room, and then a copy of comments that were made regarding the application on Facebook. We have also received emails from the following individuals, and I'm just going to do last name on these. Allison Barber Bladen Chilton, and I will note on Chilton, those were 2 additional emails. One is photos, one is an email that was received today. Cooper, Eldridge, Human, Hirsch, Kanopka, Larned, Leek, Lisi, McLaughlin, Murray, Myers, Pruitt, South, Stern, Willank, York, and York. And I believe that is it in terms of communications that have come in for the commission. I will note that we had sent out a link to the republished packet after 4 this afternoon. 2 communications did come in from Kanopka and Pruitt between the time we republished the packet and now. Both of those have been updated and the link is current.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can start with the applicants.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm not
Yes.
Okay, just want to let you know I'm not real comfortable with doing a Zoom meeting. Okay, so I'll do my best. I'd like to share a screen, so I'm going to click this share screen button and see what happens here. Okay,
That's correct, Sam.
is that right? Did I do the right thing? Yep, look,
We started screen sharing. There you go.
you got it?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so we're Sam and Michelle Schifrin. We're the owners of the Kirby Mill, and we've owned the Kirby Mill for 25 years. Basically, what we're here to talk about is the fact that the Kirby Mill has fallen into a point of jeopardy again, as it was prior to us acquiring it back in 1997. We're trying to propose a way to save the Kirby Mill. In our opinion, it's straight up save the Kirby Mill. So the proposal we're about to present here, just want to make it very clear that it puts forth significantly less impact than the currently approved uses of the Kirby Mill. So we have approvals back from 1997 that approved significant usage of the mill. What we've done historically and what we're proposing to do here is significantly less than we're currently approved to do. So from an impact standpoint, it's significantly less impact than what we could do with the mill. So this application, this is the best option that we feel that we can come up with to prevent the mill from falling back into complete disrepair. Okay, and also this proposal is a way to allow the community to benefit from having the mill. People all want to see what's in the mill. People love the mill, and this is a way to open the mill up so people can come in and actually enjoy the mill. So I want to describe how we got here. One of the things that we've realized is that the neighborhood is very different now than it was when we acquired the mill in 1997. The fact is that most people have no idea why we ended up with the mill or what its condition was before 1997. And so it's kind of important that they understand this, that everyone understands this and understands what the jeopardy of the mill really means, what it could return to. And so what it really comes down to is in 1996, the mill had been, prior to that, it was property of the University of Connecticut, and it was handed over to the town of Mansfield. Town of Mansfield took it from the university. University decided to surplus it off. The town of Mansfield said, let us have the mill so we can find a good use for it, because they did not want it demolished. Half the community said, just demolish it, sell the stone, whatever you have to do. Half the community said, no, we want it saved. So the town of Mansfield created a search committee to go find somebody to try to use the mill. That turned out to be Michelle and I. We had a manufacturing company in Willimantic. We were very excited about the mill becoming available because we had visited it many times, as anyone else who picnicked in the area did, and we really wanted to see it saved. So we stepped up and we made a proposal to the town that we would come in and do a complete renovation of this mill, bring it back from complete ruin. It was completely devastated. And we'd bring it back from complete ruin, bring our company in, our manufacturing company, and have additional rental space to save the mill. That is exactly what we did. Okay, this is what it looked like when we got it. This gives you a little bit of an example of just a few of the pictures. We have numerous pictures, but this is what the condition of the mill was like inside and out. Every window is blown out, vines were growing through, animals throughout, floors caved in, roofs caved in. This is what we took on. So we had to make a decision. Did we want to make the commitment to save this mill or just let it be demolished, which is where it was? We decided to save it. Again, as I mentioned, we visited there frequently. We loved the mill. We said, we're in a position to do this. Let's do it. We successfully saved the mill for the past 25 years. You can see, these are just a rough idea what the interior looks like. And you can see this picture of the Christmas decorations the first year after we moved into the mill. It was and is spectacular. We've done our best to hang on to this mill and keep it viable. Along the way, so we were running our businesses in there. We had some space leased out. Things were going fine. And along the way, we decided to develop the hydropower facility. That was a major undertaking. It cost $5.5 million to develop the hydropower at the Kirby Mill. And what had happened prior is other people had proposed developing hydropower in the hollow, and they had intended to connect right onto the output of Mansfield Hollow Dam and run large black pipes down the river, build a major powerhouse across the river from the Kirby Mill, clear all the trees, and essentially destroy the hollow. That permit was nearly approved and built. When we stepped up and said, this was prior to us owning the mill, when we stepped up and said we wanted to do hydropower, we told the town, look, we're going to do this in a much nicer way. We actually reduced the power output to 1/2. The prior applicants were going to build a 1 megawatt system. We built a 1/2 megawatt system. Give you an idea what that is? The hydropower plant at the mill right now powers the mill completely and up to 250 additional homes. So if you live within 250 homes of the Kirby Mill, your power actually comes from the hydropower plant. So the people in the community, as much as they still get their bill from Eversource, and they still pay their normal electrical rates, just because of the laws of physics, we move electrons through our generators and they pump out into the street, and everybody on that street is running off a hydro. So if you plug in your electric car, you plug in your cell phone, you are charging it from the Natchog River. That's something that we took on. It was a major, major undertaking. And frankly, because it turned into literally, it's a federal project. It's licensed by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It reached a point where it wasn't economically feasible for us. So we had to basically bring another partner into the project. So other people came in and they actually invested the $5.5 million. But we're the licensees, we own the property. We have a lease that's going to expire fairly soon with that person that put all that money in, the people that put that money in. And it'll come back into our hands very soon. If you look at the top left corner, you see Michelle and I standing in the powerhouse. Those turbines are something that we designed and built in the Kirby Mill. I'm the patent holder for all of the design of those turbines. And the company that's in the lower level of the Kirby Mill is our old company that designed and developed these turbines, and they are still there to develop and sell hydro turbines. So the lower floor of the Kirby Mill is currently used by a company called Newstream. That was our former company that is designing and building these turbines. So this was a huge enhancement to the hollow. No one else would have done it like this. They would have built the full megawatt. And it just is another example of how we felt like we've made such a giant investment in this facility and what we've brought to the community. So these pictures give you a pretty good idea. I mean, you can see up in the top right corner, that pile of material that was removed is almost the size of the mill itself. That was out in the front lot. The next picture down, you can see the mill off in the distance as we're excavating to put this 9-foot diameter penstock pipe in. You don't see any of this when you come there because we did an unbelievable design job, hide it all. It looks very minimal, but it's there and it's running and it's pretty fantastic. So what it comes down to is from 1997 to 2020, the mill was in pretty good shape. Things were good. The building was completely full and in fact running on 100% renewable. In 2020, the occupants were the bottom level. The entire bottom level was Newstream. That was our former company that builds the turbines. The mid-level was the Yukon Puppetry Program. And the top floor is Yukon MFA program, Master of Fine Arts Art Studios. Pretty nice situation, all good. Everything is running fine. The mill is stable. We're in good shape. COVID-19 hits, the bottom falls out. First thing that happened to us is Yukon canceled one full floor of lease space and then threatened to pull out of the entire mill because we actually had contractual agreements that didn't allow them to do that. They came back and said, we either do it or we'll pull out of the whole mill and good luck, folks. So we had to negotiate and they pulled out. So now we have a big empty floor. Other leases over the bottom floor in particular are maturing. Those leases are going to expire very soon. So we could be left very soon with the top floor leased to Yukon and 2 other completely vacant floors. That will not support the mill. To put it into perspective, the mill costs about $100,000 a year just to maintain it. That's taxes, insurance, and general maintenance, about $100,000 a year. It's a big, expensive building. It's a large facility. So significant vacant space, no users in sight. The uses for the building that are approved are manufacturing and office use. That's it. As a matter of fact, manufacturing of equipment, if you really want to look at the specific definition in our existing permits. So there are no real allowed uses, and we all know that manufacturing has been going away for the past 20 years. And right now, because of the COVID situation, no one needs office space. There's a glut of office space, and we have had no interest from potential users that's appropriate or valid. We've had a few people come and want to rent very small spaces. It's not even divided that way. We can't even easily do that. And it's not enough space to justify even the effort. And it would in no way would help support the mill. People with small businesses want to come in, they want to pay a couple $100 a month and have a little corner somewhere. Everyone loves the mill, but that just doesn't work in a facility this size. We've looked into other relief, COVID relief. If you look at the Yukon documents they provided us for when they pulled out, they literally state straight up that they pulled out because of COVID. So we've tried to look for other relief. Is there anything available to help support the mill because of the impact of COVID? Nothing. We could find nothing that is appropriate or valid for this kind of a building. The other thing that happens, if you look at this bottom line note here, is zoning limitations. Because we have such a limited approval, even if people approach us, we end up in a situation where we have to explain to them that we have to go through the zoning process and get approval, special permit approval. You guys understand how difficult that is. I mean, if you look at what we're trying to do right now, this is a good example. It costs a lot of money and a lot of time. You can't have tenants come in and want a space and say to them, well, you might have to spend the next 6 months. We've been talking to the town for over 2 years about a winery. You might want to spend 6 months or 8 months and hire all kinds of professionals to be able to come in and put your small business in the Kirby Mill. That's something we need to address. We desperately need to address it. Today, I want to talk to you about just the one application that we have in place, but we need to come back to you guys and talk to you about that. And I think Linda even has some ideas about what we might be able to do there. So we plan to come back and talk to you about that. So Kirby Mill's in serious jeopardy again. It's going to end up being a negative situation, and we are going to run out of money if we're going to try to support it at $100,000 a year just to keep it alive. And it frankly, doesn't make any sense to do that. So what are we going to do? The way we operate our businesses, we literally sit down and we create spreadsheets and we say, what are our options? We throw out all the ideas, we brainstorm, and this is the list. Sell to Yukon. Just so you know, Yukon, when they leased the space, they literally asked us for a right of first refusal if we chose to sell the building. We said no, and the reason we said no is because Town of Mansfield has the right of first refusal on this building, and with the potential of turning it into town offices. That's something the Town of Mansfield asked us for back in 1997, and that's still what our contractual agreement is at the town. So spreadsheets. I'm sorry, was that? Did I just hear something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think there is a call-in individual who is not, thank you. They just muted.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know if it was something I needed to deal with. Okay, so anyway, Yukon, they are interested in the building. Another option, put it on the market. So we've recently had 3 other people approach us about purchasing the building. Extremely wealthy people. They are not from in town. We do not know what they had in mind for uses, but they're gung-ho. They're actually saying, sell us the building, guys, sell us the building. Okay, another option, revert to the town's 1996 plan for housing. So when we acquired the mill, the town handed us the plan they had produced for the mill. It was to convert the mill into housing. And they said, this plan has already been developed. So if you guys want to do this, go ahead. And we said, no, we're going with manufacturing. But that plan is, should we go back and revisit that? Okay. Another option, do what happened to George Kirby and Town of Mansfield and University of Connecticut. Just don't spend any money on it. Just don't spend the $100,000 a year, and it'll just deteriorate and it'll have tax liens and it'll just go right back to the way it was. Last thing in the world we want to do. We've invested our 25 years of our lives into this building and massive amounts of money. Okay. So we don't want to do that, but it's one of the options that we have to seriously consider. So the other is, can we create another business? We've created many businesses throughout the years. Can we create another business that can support the mill? We're not young anymore. I'm 64, Michelle is 63. The amount of time, risk, and effort that takes, I'm not sure we can muster it, but we said, yep, we're going to do it one more time. So that's the decision we made. We said, yep, that's what we're going to do. We've always buckled down in the past, made it work. That's what we're going to do. But if we are, it has to be a business that really has the ability to support the mill long-term. It has to be something that can be there for a long time and take care of the mill. It has to be an economically viable business. I mean, these are things that any business person would consider, okay? It needs to be a really good fit for the mill. We wanted to make sure that it was an asset to the community. We did not want to do something that people don't want. Unfortunately, we're getting pushback from the local people, which we can understand. But for the rest of the community, we needed to do something that people really wanted. We needed to be a proven successful business model. We aren't at a point in our lives to take a high-risk business venture. We really wanted to open the mill up to the community because we want the community to love the mill as much as we do. We want them to be able to come in and like the place and want to support it so that we get positive support in the future, like we did back in 1997. And I should just mention that back in 1997, I didn't really quite finish the story. When the town created the Kirby Mills Search Committee to find a user, it included several people from the immediate community. In fact, people that lived in the same houses as the people who aren't happy about our application now, the exact same houses. Those people aren't there anymore. They were so supportive. They did everything imaginable to make this work so that we could get this mill and we could build it out as a full bore manufacturing facility with massive heavy usage. The same community that now isn't happy with what we're doing, but it's because they weren't there then. They didn't see it. They didn't see what the condition really was and what it could turn back to. Of course, the other thing is, you don't start a business unless you're interested in it, unless it meets your interest and your capabilities and experience. Okay, so our thought process was this. Is there a way that we can open the mill to the public so that we can get that support and that people can all enjoy the mill? We have people every day that want to come in for tours. And when we do give people tours of the mill, they absolutely love it. And we wanted to find a way to make it so that anybody that wants can come in and see all the interesting things in the mill. Then we said, since we're winemakers, because Michelle and I are winemakers and have been for several years, what if we put in a small winery and that would create the financial part? So when people come in to enjoy the mill, it would help support the mill financially. Okay, could this be a way to preserve the mill and keep it viable? That was our thought process. We're winemakers. We go to wineries all the time and we make wine. And we thought maybe that's what we should do. So that was the decision we made. But from a business standpoint, we said, will it work? Can it support the mill? And when we went through a complete business analysis and developed a full business plan, it came down to the need for two things. The only way a winery could help support a building of this magnitude is it really needed two components. It needed to have a wholesale distribution of wine components. So you're producing wine and you're selling it to liquor stores and restaurants, and you get it out there and you try to develop a brand. You have one place there. And then it also needed a tasting room where you have retail sales. And just to give you an idea, a wholesale bottle of wine sells for like about a quarter of what a retail bottle of wine sells for. Okay, so from an ability to support the building, it needed to have both of those components, or it just doesn't do it. It doesn't support the building, and it isn't even worth having a winery there. So that brought us to saying, let's do it. Michelle and I looked at each other one day and we said, you really want to do this? And we said, yep, let's go for it. And that's what we did. So the status of our permits, now I'll get into the seriousness of the permitting situation here. Direct sale of wine is a permitted use in our zone now. We went through, if you go to the bottom of this page, we went through extensive law changes, endured a couple of years worth of effort here to reach a point where this became a viable and legal use of the building. Legal with special permit, but a proper use of the building. I mean, we went through a state of Connecticut statute change and that got slowed down by COVID. We went through a Mansfield ordinance change. We went through a Mansfield zoning regulation change. We went through our first modification to special permit. And now we're at this application. That's a lot of stuff to put a small business in a building that you own. So just to point out, when I mentioned down here, the modification of special permits, as a reminder, back in December of 2020, we came to you guys and you gave us the authorization to open the wine manufacturing operation. And you said to us, if you want to have on-site sales, you need to come back to modify the special permit. That's exactly what we're doing here. It was part of the condition of the original approval. So what's the deal with the tasting room? What's it going to be? So this, I think, is going to be of interest to the neighborhood and to the community. It's going to be absolutely fabulous. The plan is that you will literally come in through the front door. So anyone who comes to the tasting room will be able to come right through the main tower front door, walk right into the front of the Kirby Mill. It's the nicest space in the mill. It's to the right side. It is absolutely beautiful open space with beautiful natural light. We currently have the wine production section in there in the back corner of it, and we intend to leave that. And we're going to section that off with a wall that's going to be constructed of the original mill windows. The rest of this space, we are going to develop out into essentially a Kirby Mill museum. So we have unbelievable artifacts, original machinery, original equipment, documents, photographs. We are literally going to build this into essentially a workbenches, George Kirby's original desk, which will be the main tasting counter, by the way. We're going to build this into essentially what will look sort of like the original factory space, exposed original floors, original beams. So when you come in, you'll essentially be in the original mill. You'll be able to enjoy all the artifacts, and you'll be able to go over to the counter and buy a glass of wine while you're in there doing that and enjoying it. That's what the tasting room is. It'll allow people to see some of the things in the mill. This is a few pictures of just some of the existing interesting points in the mill. The bottom right, that's the vault. Okay, long history. We could sit here and tell you a tremendous story about this vault, but we finally, after 25 years, right? 25 years, we finally got the vault opened up. It's a spectacular thing to see. And yes, there was some gold in it, not enough to be worth anything, but there was some gold and a lot of other interesting things. This is all going to be available to people. This is the boiler up on the top right. Bottom left is the tower clock. In the top right left is with a closer picture of the clock. In the middle, you can see the actual locks on the vault door. Those locks are extremely valuable to collectors. People have offered to purchase the locks alone from us, never mind the front door. You see a photograph down here. This is an interesting photograph. This is the Kirby Mill during the 1938 hurricane, and you can see the roof blown off on what would be the south end of the mill. The roof is completely blown off, and you can see other buildings in ruin. So these buildings in ruin, something most people don't realize, the entire hollow had industrial buildings all the way along the river here. Most people don't realize that. We have some sketches of where those buildings were located. Really, really interesting. We have documents. You can see a document here. This is the E. Howard Clock Company. This is when George Kirby attempted to buy a tower clock to put into the tower. He never finished paying for it. He was in South Africa in his diamond mines, and the clock became available, and he never finished paying for it, never got the clock. So Michelle and I, knowing that it was a Howard clock, knowing the size of the dials, were able to determine that it was a Howard number 2 striker. And we went off and we found a clock and did a complete restoration of that clock, including manufacturing most of the parts you see in these pictures. So this is just a couple of things. This is just a little tidbit of how much interesting artifacts and things we have that people will be able to come in and enjoy. We can talk for hours about each one of these things. It's just extremely interesting. So the tasting room, it's essentially a museum. It'll be 2,700 square feet, which is what you showed here. Okay, that's about a 2,700 square foot space. The total space of the winery is about 4,000 altogether. It's we're asking for the legal assembly capacity to be whatever the code allowed amount is. Now, that doesn't mean that that's how many people will be there. And I'll talk about that more later. But what this is the space will have a safe capacity as dictated by code, fire code and safety code. And we're asking that there isn't a limitation put on that this capacity of the space be listed as whatever is the safe capacity of the space. We are asking, we're estimating the numbers of persons, and this was used throughout our studies and our reports, to be about 44 people on site at any given time during the peak times. And we see the peak time from our experience of going to local wineries as 7 to 8 p.m. on Friday and Saturday night. And the other peak time would be Monday through Wednesdays, about 5 to 7. And we anticipate somewhere around 7 to 10 people or so on site at any given time. I'd like to say, though, that doesn't mean that those are hard and fast numbers and I guess I'll get to that when we talk about traffic as we go further. So what will happen in the tasting room? People will be able to come in for tastings, which we're hoping to offer 2 versions of tastings, one a basic tasting and one a tour tasting. So Michelle and I have traveled to Napa and some other wine country areas, and people do very nice guided tours of the wineries. We're hoping to be able to offer guided tours of the Kirby Mill, where we take a small group, 5 or 6 people, and walk to the most interesting sites. taste a specific wine at each of those sites, and talk about the historic site in itself. For example, the clock and the boiler and the vaults and the powerhouse, and that's something we really look forward to doing, to really be able to let people have a really grand tour of the mill. It'll be a really fun thing for people to do. But people will also be able to buy a glass of wine, sit there and drink that, or buy a full bottle. Yes, they can sit and drink the full bottle if they choose, or they can take the bottle and go home. That's what happens with a typical tasting room. So this will be a Napa style classic tasting room without no parties. Well, and I'll get to that later, but it'll be a quiet, peaceful place to come in, enjoy the wine, enjoy the history of the mill, and then leave. So the proposed operating hours, what we're proposing is at the bottom here. So we're asking for Sunday through Wednesday, 11 to 8 p.m. and Thursday through Saturday, 11 to 10 p.m. Tasting room operations, okay, invites the community in to see the history, as I just told you all about that. Even if they don't want to drink wine, if people want to come in, it'll be open. The mill will be open. You don't have to buy wine. You can come in and enjoy essentially the museum if you choose to. We do not plan to have a commercial kitchen preparing hot food. I know some of the people were concerned that this was going to be a restaurant. It is not going to be a restaurant. I'll get into more detail, I think, later, but in this presentation, if I remember I had there or not. But what it comes down to here is we do have to get a food permit, but that's a requirement of the Eastern Highland Health District because we may need to wash wine glasses, and we need to make sure we have safe and proper washing facilities for that, and bathroom facilities. We will not have food preparation facilities. They forced us into needing to require a food permit. We pushed back on them, and they said, nope, that's what you have to do. That's the way it is. You're going to wash glasses, and you need to have proper bathroom facilities for safety and sanitation. We said, okay, that's what we have to do. No scheduled or formal outdoor activities. No weddings or bachelorette parties. Okay, period. No weddings or bachelorette parties. I've been to wineries that have weddings or bachelorette parties. I don't stay very long, and I would have nothing to do with that. So assembly capacity, I wanted to get back to this. So the max capacity of 80 to 99 persons, that's what we believe by code is going to be permitted, somewhere in that range based on the square footage and so forth. We will limit it, no matter what is permitted by code, we'll limit it to 99 people. And that's because after 99 people, you get into sort of a different set of requirements. And so 99 will be the maximum capacity. But if the fire and health codes come in and say it's 60, well, then it'll be 60. Or if they say it's 40, it'll be 40. But even if it's greater, we believe it'll be 80 to 99 based on the space, but we'll limit it to 99. I want to make it clear that capacity has nothing to do with the number of traffic trips on the road. Okay, that's just how many people could be in the facility at any given time. The traffic trips, for example, if you had a maximum of 44 people come in a given hour, which is the kind of projections that we had as the peak time, there could already be 15 people there from the prior hour, or there could be 15 people in the following hour. Now, if those 44 people don't leave during that specific hour, then the number of people accumulate. And that does not add any additional trips. It's the same number of people making the same number of trips up and down the road. So the number of trips and the traffic that's created doesn't change because the assembly capacity is set where it is. So at this point, I'd like to hand this over to Jeffrey from Weston and Sampson, and he can fill you in a little bit more, but we did quite a bit of analysis. And Jeffrey's company, a very well-known and very capable traffic engineers, have evaluated it. And I guess Jeffrey, he can give his points right now. And Jeffrey, before you do, I just want to point out at the bottom of this one more time that the currently approved uses allow 82 people in the building. We could have up to 82 people working in that building, making what would equate to probably as much as 384 trips per weekday, 20 trips on weekend days, and 82 trips per hour at times during the week. So Jeffrey, are you there?
I am. For the
Okay.
record, my name is Jeffrey Santa Cruz. I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut. I'm also a professional traffic operations engineer. I work with Western and Sampson. We have local offices in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. So we took a look at the trip generation of this site in a couple of different ways. One way was to look at parking, what was allowed under the original use. As Sam said, 82 persons per day. Normally when you have manufacturing and individual uses that are businesses tends to be one car, one person per trip, hence where the 82 people, i.e. cars, comes up. A couple of other things we did was we looked at other locations within Connecticut where, and Sam's memo actually talks about this and gave some estimations of how many trips could be associated with that. And that's where the 15 trips in the peak hour had come up originally in our memo. Then we were asked by the Assistant Town Engineer, Derek Lash, to talk about the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They are the kind of quintessential source that we as engineers go to for anything traffic related, trip generation, distributions, things of that sort. So we did take a look. There is a land use code called wine tasting rooms. So we took a look at what the information was providing, and in our report, you will see that there is some estimations based on that are higher than what was estimated based on some local conditions and existing building footprints and parking. And one thing that ITE always tells us is you need to look at a few key things. These trip generation rates are collected from sites all over the country. So you have to kind of really pay attention to where the particular sites are. Do they fit the character of your area? Are they urban and you're in a rural area? Or you're in a rural and they're in an urban area? Well, in the case of wine tasting rooms, a lot of these sites were in California, Virginia, and Illinois. Now, if you all know, those are three areas where wineries include the entire vineyard. A lot of times they host event space, and they do host large events. They do tours of the entire winery operation as well as the vineyard, as well as some of them even have bed and breakfasts. So we took that and we kind of said, well, there's a lot of uses there that we're not doing. We're not having outdoor venue space. We're not having a large space for weddings and big parties. We're not having a bed and breakfast, so we're not having people stay overnight, those sort of things. Then we also looked at the limited number of data points or points. And on one of them, there's only 4 sites that were collected all over the country. And the data is kind of scattered all over the place, one high, one low, one mediocre. And what the ITE does is it puts kind of a best fit curve down the middle. And it says that's what should be what you'd expect. Some of the sites are lower and some were slightly higher. So we took a look at that and we really felt that based on our experience and the nature of the site and the uses associated with this particular small tasting room, that the IT data really overestimated what the anticipated traffic operations would be, or I'm sorry, trip generation would be for this facility. Then we took another step. We said, okay, if trips are coming and going from the site, we made some estimations with Sam's help on how people would get to and from the site along the local roadway. This was done, a lot was Sam's experience with staff and whatnot that had already worked in the building. So we then took the trips that were generated for the proposed site and we kind of moved them out to the area roadways. How would they get out from the site back to other locations, whether it be 6, 195, whatnot. And what we found is when you kind of start moving those vehicles out, they dissipate pretty quick. In one of the intersections, one of the peaks was 17 additional trips in any direction. Now, when you think about that at first, wow, 17 cars, it sounds like a lot until you really think that's over the peak hour. So that's really about 3.5, one car every 3.5 minutes going one way or the other. Then keep in mind, a lot of these peak generations for this type of facility occur outside of normal peak hour operations. Normal peak hours are that 7 to 9 in the morning and that 4 to 6 in the afternoon. These tend to be in that later time, that 6:30, 7 to 9 type of range. So while this site might be generating this amount of traffic, the roadway itself is now lower than what would normally be seen as a peak. So this facility, while it may generate more traffic during that time than what that road currently sees, overall, it may not generate more traffic than what that road sees during the peak hour. We also took a look at the specific intersections that the cars would come through, and we said, okay, what's the existing geometry? what is the sight lines and whatnot. And we were able to find that all the existing intersections have stop signs or stop control. They're good movement. We measured all the intersection sight distance. There's plenty of intersection sight distance for the posted speeds. We looked at that in conjunction with CONDOT standards and found that there wasn't any geometric or sight distance restrictions that would lead us to believe that additional traffic at that intersection during the off-peak would pose a safety risk to the traveling public. And that pretty much kind of goes through what we've done to date. Overall, we feel that the information provided by the Schifrins in their original application letter is consistent with general good engineering practice, and that with our additional information providing trip generation, the actual safety, takes a look at the intersections, that this proposed development would have minimal impact to the overall safety and operations of the area roadways. Thank you, Sam.
Okay, so thank you, Jeff. So I'll go back to the remainder here. So one of the other questions that comes up frequently would be parking. And I know that that is a concern to some neighbors about potential on-street parking. No on-street parking needed. We have the 63 spaces required by zoning regulations for the uses in the mill. That includes the current uses and the wine tasting room. So if you go through, that's done by a certain amount of square foot, one parking space per certain amount of square foot for each different type of use. So if you go through those calculations, we really need 63 spaces to meet the zoning regulations. Kirby Mill currently has 76. Oops, messed up here. So Kirby Mill currently has 76. And importantly, the peak times for the tasting room don't coincide with the peak times of the other uses in the building. So the fact is that although we only need 63 for the tasting room and the other uses, and we have 76, we really will have pretty much the full 76 available to just the tasting room, because the coincide with the times in the mill or almost that many. We also have expansion room on site. There's plenty of room on site to add additional parking if that became necessary, whether that be temporary or permanent parking. There's a lot of room on the site. It's a 4.5 acre site, and we have plenty more room to add more parking. So additional permits and approvals. We're asking you to consider, there are some other things we'll need, other permits we'll need before we could open for business. What we're asking the Planning and Zoning Commission to do, if you see it to grant us our special permit, that we can address these other ones afterwards. Some of them have costs associated with them and do take some time, and we didn't see the reason to do that unless we knew we were going to receive our special permit. So one of them, for example, Eastern Highland Health District, I mentioned that food service permit. They require that. One of the things that happens to get a food service permit is our well has to be certified as a public water supply. So we got to start there, start with the public water supply, and then go back to the Highland Health District and say, yes, we're certified as a public water supply. Now please come in and see what else we need to do to meet the proper health and safety standards. Building permits, we are considering building a wall, I mentioned, to segregate the wine production side from the tasting room. We're going to need to hire an architect to design that to meet current code. We recognize that, and we'll need building permits and meet all the fire permits and building permits and whatever else is required there, and any other permits that come up along the way. The other thing we're doing is we're asking you to waive the need for a site plan, because you have many site plans on file for the Kirby Mill, and we are doing nothing on the exterior of the building. So any site plan you have is still 100% valid. No changes to the exterior of the building. Nothing will look different on the outside than it currently does. We've reached out to the community to see what people think. I will say that there's a bunch of social media stuff going on here. That was not our intent. We had no intention of going down the path of trying to drum up support on social media. There some people who are in opposition to what we're trying to do and live very locally made the decision to go down that path. And started, instead of asking us directly questions, they started immediately with trying to create a petition with a title that was enough to scare anybody, and then a lot of information that wasn't really complete or detailed enough to be appropriate. And they festered up everybody and started asking people to sign a petition. I asked them in the social media to please hold off until we had a public hearing. Don't go straight to a petition. And they really just, it got nasty very quickly and very, very personally upsetting to Michelle and I. Really personally, we felt really personally attacked, especially after all we've tried to do to save the mill. It was really hard. We've had a very, very hard week. We've done our best to try to be civil and to try to figure out what to do so that that didn't get run all the way up a flagpole and cause massive issue. So we decided that we would go ahead and have to get engaged social media. Didn't want to do it. What we did is we posted the letter that we had sent to the neighborhood. But what Michelle and I did is, we know that receiving a public notice is a scary thing for neighbors, for anyone. So prior to sending out the public notice, we sent a personal letter to everyone in the neighborhood within the 500-foot circle, notification area, explaining exactly what we wanted to do and warning them that they'd be seeing this public notice and that this is what it was about. We wanted them to have the information so they didn't get all shook up when they got the public notice or the certified mail. What I did is Michelle and I went on social media, which was like brutal because we don't do that, tried to figure it out. And we posted the letter so that people could see it. This has only been out for a few days, okay, and basically ended up with 67 people writing beautifully supportive comments about, please, let them put the winery tasting room in it. We'd love to have that in our community. And we got 212 people who didn't write comments, but just liked it, just said that we like this. Okay, we like the letter, we like the whole thing. We also then, because we saw that there was a petition that the people that started that other petition did in fact get some signatures on it. We said, I guess we have to do that now too. So we went out with a petition and we were able to get 109 people to sign the petition in the course of a day or so. Out of that, only 41 were residents, but still 41 were residents. But it does show you that there's a lot of interest. These are people who are so excited. And at the bottom here, I mentioned anecdotal support. I'll tell you this, other than the neighborhood, and again, we understand their concern and we want to make sure that what we do works for everyone. But anecdotally, everyone that we speak to absolutely loves the idea and can't wait until we open the tasting room. Really excited about being able to get into the Kirby Mill, and the idea of being able to come in and have a high quality glass of wine while you're touring the interesting artifacts is just an exciting thing to everyone we've talked about. It's been nothing but extremely positive, other than the local people who will probably speak tonight. So, in summary, we feel this represents a significantly less intense use over the currently permitted uses. It doesn't create a safety concern nor significant impact on the local roadways, as Jeffrey Santa Cruz just said. Okay, we believe it's an excellent use of the mill. It does have the potential to keep the mill viable, to keep it an asset to the community, if we are able to go through with the whole process and do it proper. It's highly supported by the majority of residents. It's a small group that's opposed. And again, I don't want to pick on them because I understand their concern and we can talk through their concerns, but it is highly supported by the rest of the community. And it allows everyone to enjoy the Kirby Mill and the Hollow. Kirby Mill is a major part of the Hollow. It's essentially why the Hollow is there, because it was a mill community. So we wanted to ask you, that's it. That's the conclusion of what I wanted to present. We did want to ask you to if possible, to go through the whole public hearing and get it closed. The notices ended up being delayed by the Hartford Courant initially. So we ended up having to delay this public hearing an additional 2 weeks. So it was a month since you approved the application to the time we've had this public hearing. It's a long time for us to sit here and on pins and needles and not knowing what to do or not do. And it's been really, really difficult. And so we're asking, if possible, that you get the public hearing closed so that at your next meeting, if you don't do it tonight, and I assume you won't, but at least at your next meeting, you could at least discuss it and maybe vote. And one of our concerns is that you go to summer schedule, which is only once a month. So we're a little concerned about the kind of timing this is going to take. So we're asking you to try to expedite by getting things moved along if you could. It's just a respectful request on our part. We're just trying to ask, please. And then again, we're also asking you to support it, okay? Help us save the mill. This is our effort to save the mill. If this doesn't work, this is in no way a threat. This is no way meant to be negative in any way. We do not want to sell the Kirby Mill. However, we really believe at this point, we're probably at that point. If we can't use it, we're probably going to have to turn to some of the people that have expressed interest and say, it's time. And we hoped that wouldn't happen. We want to leave it to our kids. That was our plan, but we think we're kind of like right there. Okay. So that's it. That's, is there anything else, Michelle, that you can think of?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
So we'll open it up for any questions that there might be from commission members. Yes, Carlita.
Hi, I hear your anxiousness to resolve this, but I wanted to get some more clarification. When you stated that your proposal is highly supported by the majority of Mansfield residents, what is the empirical support or the data that drives that statement?
So the petition and the social media comments. If you look at the social media comments, I mean, you know, if you're going to ask us to go out and do some sort of a formal study, it seems unreasonable to me because no one else ever has to do that. Okay, but if you just ask around yourself, I suggest you do. In fact, I think it would be a great thing if all of you would. The other thing I would do is I would like to invite the commission to the site. Okay, after this meeting, you know, it's you could say it's anecdotal. I did mention that. Okay, but that's kind of where we are.
Also, I would like to mention that over the last 25 years, being at the mill pretty much every day of the week, we meet people in the hollow and people that come nonstop to the mill over the last 25 years, and everybody is in awe. And we've actually given people tours, and we've met people up on the dike that, you know, walk and over the 25 years, not a day doesn't go by that someone asks us about the mill and is very interested, and most of them live in the area.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
And
Katie, I saw your. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. I had a question about the times going so late in the evening, because all of the wineries that I've ever been to, they usually tops is 7 o'clock. And I can't imagine you getting too many people at 10 o'clock. But my question is to make this viable, are you thinking of it as an event place eventually? No, you would not be serving food, but you can always hire a caterer and have a wedding wine party type of thing. And that could allow you to go later in the evening. I'm just concerned about the times to be a good wine tasting type of thing. I know Cassidy Hill, they are open to late, but they also offer music in the evening. They have the wine tastings and then music in the evening. Now that's going to bring quite a few people. Are you thinking along those lines?
So let me just start by saying that Cassidy Hill is the bane of our existence. They are one of the most miserably run wineries anywhere for exactly that reason. And they are in a very, very difficult location. Some people might try to say that Mansfield Hollow Road is a small, windy road. It's not. It's a straight, easy traveled road. Cassidy Hill is not. Cassidy Hill is miles up back roads. And they run events nonstop and have large crowds, and they're not well equipped for it. And they've faced the consequences of that, had to be rezoned and rechecked and do all kinds of things. So please don't compare what we're planning to do to Cassidy Hill. If you want to compare what we're trying to do, please take a look at Hillyland in Scotland, or the Columbia, Heartstone in Columbia, or look at those wineries. Don't look at Cassidy Hill. That is not our plan. We are not going to have events. We aren't going to have weddings. We aren't going to have a formal what parties are, in other words, we're not going to let people come in and rent the facility to have parties. Okay, that is not going to happen. We have zero interest in that. It's not something we have any interest in whatsoever. So that's where that is. As far as the hours go, we expect to have a relatively low level. We don't see this as peak and high numbers in short periods of time. So by spreading the hours, you actually allow people to kind of come and go at a much more casual level. That's the reason why we put the expanded hours in our planning and hoping to run it in a relatively expanded hour range. That's where that came from. If you limit to, let's say, 3 hours for 3 days a week, then anyone who wants to come to your winery and buy your wine is going to come in that time period. And that's going to, so now you're going to take essentially all your same number of customers and compress them down into a shorter period of time. So we tried to do is have it so that the place is open long enough for people so they can come and go and it's not intense. And secondly, the fact that it's going to be an interesting enough place where people will want to come even to not buy wine, that we wanted it to have available throughout the day for that purpose. So people can come and not be there when it's crowded with people buying wine. That's what we were attempting to do.
Dorian.
Okay. No scheduled events, no formal events.
Okay.
That's the first thing that popped in my head is what Katie said, the hours. I've done a lot of wine tasting tours and no, don't laugh. And only the ones that stay open to 10 o'clock are serving dinner or having events. I don't understand why you have to be open that late if you're just a wine tasting. I can see 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, but 10 o'clock?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. For starters, that is what we proposed and what we asked for. We've never said we weren't open to discussion about that. It's not. We have some leeway there, and we could talk about that. We thought that was the best range from a business standpoint that allowed a more even flow. And 10 o'clock would mean everybody's gone by 10 o'clock. So if the peak time is 8 to 9. And you can't say 9 o'clock, you're all done, get out. It's maybe you stop offering for people to buy wine at 9 o'clock, but you got to let them finish their glass of wine. And so, we didn't want to have a situation where you were trying to kick people out at too early of an hour. So we've done a lot of wine tasting too. And wineries do range, the small wineries like what we would be. Basically talk about locally, it's farm wineries. We are not a farm winery because we're not going to grow the grapes on site. But we should be compared to the local farm wineries. Some of them do stay open later. I think, Michelle,
so for instance, Heartstone and Hilly Land, I believe it's their Friday nights and their Saturday nights are 9 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock.
Yeah. And the one in Hebron, the big one in Hebron, I can't think of the name of it right now. Anyway, they're not all at 6 o'clock. So, but we do have, if that's the concern and that's the thing that people are most concerned about, and it seems like that is what the local community is most concerned about. We are open to reconsideration for that.
Oh, you'd be willing to bring it back to say, for example, 9 o'clock.
Yes, if for example, if we had to say instead of 10 o'clock on the weekend nights is what we had defined essentially. I think that includes Thursday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, Thursday through Saturday. We were saying 10 o'clock. If, for example, you guys felt and the community felt that, look, can we pull that back to 9 o'clock? Fine. And then we had Sunday through Wednesday until 8 o'clock. If you guys wanted to say, look, can we make that 7 o'clock? We're fine with that. That would be okay. That would not hurt us. That or on that end, it'd be such a low minimal customers that fine, no problem. We'd be more than happy to do that. If that people.
Luann.
Yeah, I think that the earlier hours would be better because looking at Heartstone, they are only open till 9 on nights when they have live music. And they do events as well. So
yeah, they do.
Yes.
Yes.
Like you are not doing events, if you are not doing live music, if you are not serving food, that really wouldn't be necessary to be open past 7 on weeknights and maybe 8 on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That would be my first thought.
Yeah. So you've all mentioned music several times. I'll say this, we are not requesting music at this time, and our permits do not allow music. You literally, our liquor permit does not allow live music at this point, okay? So we're not permitted to do that, even if you guys said yes or no, okay? However, we don't want to say that. We would never come back and say we are interested in having live classical or acoustic music in the tasting room. We don't see any, that to us only adds to the classiness of the operation. I'm a violin maker, in case you don't know. So we're classical music people and we're acoustic people. And so we would love to have the ability to potentially have a duo or a small group playing nice music in the tasting room. So we're not asking for that. It's not part of this application, but we
have to go through the state.
We'd have to start with our liquor permits.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sit here and say that's not something we would never come in and ask for, just to be clear on that. So.
Yes, Vera.
I wonder, you now have businesses. Is there feedback?
Getting a little feedback, yeah.
Huh.
It could actually be me. I'll mute my.
The feedback. You actually have businesses operating there now with traffic in and out during the day. Is that correct?
Yes.
And now you're going to add in additional traffic. I can understand the neighborhood, the right concern. Those roads are narrow and they're just meant for rural, not rural, but the homeowners mostly. So you're going to add an extra burden there on the traffic, and I would be really concerned how this is managed.
Okay, well, that's the reason why we had to do the study. So we did a traffic study. We did a fairly detailed impact statement, and you heard the traffic engineer talk about it a little while ago. And just to clarify a little bit, those roads were there to support the Kirby Mill. They were there well before they were there. The houses are there because the mill is there. That's historic. And when our current approvals allow for many more car trips than what we're asking for with this permit. So if we were to go out and, let's say, find a large manufacturing company that wanted to move in there, or Michelle and I decided to refire up our manufacturing company, the intensity would be much greater than what we're proposing. Historically, we had as many as about 50 people or so working in that building years back.
About 2015.
About 2015, we had about 50 people working in the building, and the neighborhood didn't have a problem with that. And that was 50 people coming and going on a regular basis, and then customers and suppliers and salespeople and truck traffic. And that was historically what we did. We've run the building for the last 25 years. It's only been the last couple of years that it's been very low key like it is right now. There's only this UConn on the top floor is only utilizing, there's usually only about 5 or 6 people at the most.
Maybe 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
Yep.
At any given time. And our old company downstairs usually about the
They have
same.
about 7
people total, but there are usually not that
Yep.
many of them even there.
Yep.
So that's about what's in the building right now. So for the last year or two, it's been really low key. Doesn't support the building. It's very scary for us. But so it may seem quieter right now than it was, and but that's not a basis for people to be able to say, you can't go back to where you were. I mean, the building we have to find a way to use the building. And so, if we don't do this plan, which we think is a reasonable use of the building with reasonably low impact, then we're gonna have to find another use for it. And, but to answer your question specifically, yes, there are businesses in there now. And you're right, if we do this, there'll be more traffic than there is right now, but it won't be more traffic than we've had in the
Historically,
past, and it won't be more traffic than we're permitted to have. And the traffic engineers concur that it won't have a safety impact on the neighborhood.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, we can move on to comments from the public. Linda, you have a way to manage this?
So we're gonna start, here's my suggestion. We do have a lot of members of the public present, and my suggestion would be, Mr. Chair, that you ask for those that wish to speak in support first, and if folks can turn their cameras on, we'll go by that, and then you can call them by name, and then when we get
Okay.
through that list, move to opposition, same thing.
Okay, so let's start with support. And I've got pages of people here. So
If you're not hearing anyone in support, and I'm not seeing anyone turn their cameras on, everyone who has a camera on right now is a member of the commission. So
Okay.
I take that back. You do have a raised hand from one of our call-in folks.
Okay,
And so they're going to have to state that as the one name that I can't say. So, because I just see it ends, the number ends in 243 and it's an 860 area code. So if you can identify yourself and provide your comments.
Yeah, I'm Brian Coleman. I live at 26 Center Street, Mansfield Center. I'm also a member of the town council here in Mansfield. I'm speaking in support of the wine tasting room. I have property interests at 111 Mansfield Hollow Road, 117 Mansfield Hollow Road, and 36 Mansfield Hollow Road Extension. The Schiffers have been great neighbors for the last 25 years. They haven't changed the character of the building. Most property owners would probably surround it with a chain link fence and posted signs. They have offered, river access that kept the place open, allowed the public to be able to use the property over the years. I'm very supportive of having the opportunity to go in the mill and view the mill and have a glass of wine. I support this because they've always been good neighbors, and I expect them to continue to be good neighbors. And I welcome it. And I look forward to having a glass of wine with all my neighbors in the neighborhood. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Coleman, if you could you did note that you're a member of the council. Can you just clarify whether you're speaking as an individual or on behalf of the council?
I'm speaking as a notified property owner and citizen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You see anyone else, Linda?
I'm not seeing anyone with a raised hand. Mr. Coleman, if you can take your hand down, that would be helpful. I will say
star 9 on that.
I will say
Okay.
that, yep. We did receive an email just in the last few minutes, Mr. Chair. So since it will take me time to upload it to the packet, I'm just going to read it into the record.
Okay.
It does fall under the topic of support. This email is from Bev York, Wyndham Arts, promoting art, history, culture, and tourism, Wyndham Regional Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Dear members of the commission, please approve this fine project. Wineries are a popular and appropriate use for mill reuse and repurpose. When people buy real estate in a scenic country road, they must realize that bucolic farm settings come with noise, 4 a.m. roosters, trucks, manure smells, and more. When people buy near an existing quaint mill village, there will be occasional noise, traffic, etc. It is an asset to Mansfield. Everything the Schifrins undertake is always first class. Cheers, Bev York, and the 2 organizations that I listed previously.
Okay, thank you. So we can move on to opposition.
It looks like, Mr. Chair, you have a number of folks turning their cameras on at this point.
Okay.
So if you want to just,
Okay.
we
look,
have
the first
some
one I
hands
see-
raised.
The first one I see is Matthew Lizzie. Apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly.
Thank you. It's Lissy.
Okay, thank you, Lizzie.
I just wanted to start off by saying I don't like how we're being characterized as residents. I live at 89 Mansfield Hollow Road in Mansfield Center. I've lived here for almost 5 years. I knew what I was buying. I bought a historic home and in a quiet neighborhood. I knew about the mill. I knew about everything else that was going on. I did a lot of research before I bought it. There's a bunch of great people that live down here, all the way up to the dam and all the way up each side to 195 and up to Bassett's Bridge. And I can say within 2 weeks, I knew almost the entire neighborhood. We're a very close-knit community, very wonderful people. So I don't like being characterized as something other than that. We have concerns for our homes here. It seems like some scare tactics are being used too. Look, the Schifrins are great people. They've done great things to the mill. They restored it. They saved it. They're highly intelligent to be doing the power plant the way they did it, to engineer turbines. I have nothing negative to say about them as far as that goes. But we live on a quiet little street in a quiet neighborhood. And basically, you know, there's talk about how much money they've spent. Well, we've all spent money on our houses as well. We've all bought historic homes. We've all put money into them. It's a constant output of money for us to maintain our homes. So the Schifrins aren't the only ones spending money. Our money is green as well. I have a big safety concern with essentially a bar being put in at the end of the street. And it's characterized as a tasting room. So they're going to serve wine. They're going to serve beer. They're going to serve, you know, it's a little slightly different than a bar, but until 10 o'clock at night, that's a bar. We have children, we have adults, we have pets. We walk to the dam all the time. It's a narrow road. Occasionally a car passes, and it's been wonderful. You just pull over to the side, people go by. Now we're going to have a huge increase in traffic, not to mention the people are going to be drinking alcohol. Mr. Schifrin categorized us as a long straight road. We're not. You get to a dead end, which faces a house and housing, and you've got to make a turn and go around the curves, and not to mention that long straight portion of our road between Bassett's Bridge or 195. People go flying down. The one to Bassett's Bridge has a hidden turn on it. God help you if you're walking there when somebody comes around the corner. I get this whole thing that, oh, people in Mansfield support the mill, and there have been a couple people on social media that did, but they don't live down here. That's real easy to support something that doesn't affect you when you don't live down here. I think a bar in a neighborhood, I'm scared of that. You know, I've already had, and there's nobody serving alcohol at the mill. And I've already had drunk people walking along the road, drunk people on my property, doing all sorts of things I'm not going to mention on a recorded meeting. I've had to go out there at midnight at 1 a.m. and scurry people off and all this other. I pick up trash out of my yard constantly, mostly nip bottles and whatnot. I don't like that concept. And the whole thing is, something doesn't smell right to me on this. You know, we're going to have very few people come into the mill. They're going to taste a little bit of wine, and then they're going to buy a bottle and leave. Yes, this is going to save the mill. I just don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. And again, I want the Schifrins to profit. I would love to see them get filthy rich off the mill. Really, I have nothing against you. I am concerned. And see, you shouldn't throw your hands up like that and dismiss us.
You're saying things that are incorrect. You're all off base. I'm sorry, but what you're saying is
Sam, no, you're not. It's not your turn to talk.
Well, it's awful hard to sit here and listen to being insulted.
I know.
Oh, I had to be insulted the whole time.
We weren't insulting you.
Wait a minute, Matthew. I think your time is up. Let's move on to someone else. There's plenty of opposition.
I wasn't finished, and he interrupted me. I would like to finish my thought if I could, please.
Okay.
Thank you. So my whole point is, we're not against the mill changing use. We're not against new ideas. The Schifrins are very smart people from all appearances. I'm not even against what a lot of this plan that they're doing. What I fear is what we've seen. We saw an application to make wine at the mill, but oh, don't worry, we're not going to sell on site. And everybody kind of, well, okay, let them go make wine. Let them make a lot of wine, whatever. Now we're going to be selling on site. You're going to be selling, the permit says up to 99 people. Oh, but we're really not going to have 99. We're only going to have all that stuff is great. Sounds wonderful until there are 99 people there. I've heard rumor that on one of the social medias, there's been talk of live music. I like to go to bed at night. I like to sit here on my my home, relax after a long, hard day's work. We all work very hard. Everybody works hard. You can't live in America and not work hard now, it seems. And I would
Matthew, why don't you
Time
let
is
some
up.
of your other people talk? Okay.
Yep, time is up.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. So I see Diane Dorfer. Would you like to speak? Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. All right, so I'm at Diane Dorfer, 87 Bassett's Bridge Road. Our house is right where Mansfield Hollow Extension meets Bassett's Bridge. And my points of concern are about the hours of operation and issues with late night drivers in our small neighborhood. You know, surprise. So I have all these little notes all over the place. You know, I appreciate that a traffic study was done, and I appreciate that the layout of the road seems like conducive to the proposed use. But I do feel like it's a safety risk for pedestrians and cyclists in particular. When we had all of the COVID lockdowns in 2020, use of the Mansfield Hollow State Park increased hugely. Like there were a lot of out-of-state plates and people drove horribly. You know, if you live here, you have like a feel for the different neighborhoods and you drive accordingly. But when people aren't from here, they don't. But even as it is, you know, minus lockdowns, we've had people drive into our yard twice. We've lived here for 15 years. We've had people drive through our back fields with ATVs and pickup trucks. And people blow through the stop signs all the time. People have like crashed into the signs when the road is closed because it's flooded. So like even as it is, like people don't drive great. And now if people are drinking and driving on these tiny roads that they're not familiar with late at night, that feels kind of extra dangerous. I think a lot of the people who are here tonight have kids too. That's definitely one of my concerns is like my kids walk on these roads. We walk on these roads. We'd like to feel safe walking on our roads. And so I looked at the hours of operation for some other vineyards in the area. Sharp Hill is Friday through Sunday only, 11 to 5. Taylor Brook is Fridays 2 to 6, Saturday and Sunday 12 to 5. Priam, which is a little farther away, maximum is 11 through 6, Wednesday through Sunday. And so maybe the hours of operation could be condensed to kind of like try to keep our neighborhoods safer. Another point of concern that I have is I appreciate that a lot of permitting needs to happen so that the Schifrins can like carry out their plan. And I appreciate that the permitting could allow more than what they're saying they're going to do. Is there some place, like no one has to actually answer this, but is there some place where there could be like limitations written in so that we don't have to worry about maybe a change of ownership or like a change of business plan that would then lead to like catered events late at night kind of stuff?
Well,
And-
to answer your question,
Yeah,
if the commission approves it, they would approve it with conditions.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And then I guess the other thing that I wanted to mention is if the commission does approve it, hopefully maybe with condensed business hours, is I know no one loves this, but the consideration to put speed humps in both on Bassett's Bridge and Mansfield Hollow Road, not like, like, but like that controls the speed so that people can drive 25 miles an hour over it, not have to like come to a 2 miles per hour. So I just want to throw that out there. So
Good.
it's
Thank
on
you.
the record. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I see Lori Cooper with a hand up.
Hi, hold on one second. Hi. First of all, I agree. Oh, I live at 100 Mansfield Hollow Road. And I agree. Someone said the Schifrins have been good neighbors. They have. I have loved living here. It's been about 13 years now, I think. I guess my biggest concern is, well, people have already mentioned the hours, the speed bumps. I think those are great ideas, condensing the hours, putting in a way to control the speed. I'm concerned that after the Schifrins, there may not be great neighbors. I don't know sort of what this tasting room could lead to. I don't know how the Schifrins would be able to keep alive the idea that people will go and sip their wine while exploring the beauty of the mill. I don't know how that would be limited. And what about all the people who want to come down and have, meet up with their buddies and have a bunch of drinks? I don't think that there would be a rule against that. Excuse me. So, yeah, currently the Schifrins are wonderful neighbors and I love living here and I want to keep loving living here. I just don't want a pub on our street.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. Now I see one that is Dove Kugelmass.
Yes, I'm coming. Sorry. Going through the room. I apologize. So first of all, thank you very much to the commission members for your service and also the Schifrins for being, really good neighbors and really taking care of the mill. I've spoken with them and
Can
they
you
really
start with
seem
your
to-
name? I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I got called. So Dove Kugelmass.
Is that your first name is Dove?
Dove, yep. D-O-V.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I live on Mansfield Hollow Road.
Okay.
And do I need to put on my video? Is that?
Sure, why not?
Okay, I will.
Show us your face.
Might be a bad hair day though.
All right.
It's a little humid.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
You don't have to. Yes, we don't have to. We're just curious.
Okay, that's fine. So, so I am opposed to the application as written. Although, like I said, I really am fond of the Schifrins and the work that they've done. I was here for at least part of the building of the hydroelectric, and while it was quite noisy while it was happening and the hollow was filled with trucks, it was a time limited thing, and I definitely support renewable energy. In order for my support of the tasting room, although obviously I'm not, voting, but for my voice, what it's worth, versus a wine bar, I would suggest less hours, some days being closed, less capacity, and zoning regulations that would assure that no food is served within an adequate distance. So that would mean food trucks, catering, and so forth. I believe the Schifrins, in terms of their stated intents while they own the mill, but as has been pointed out, we're all stewards of our historic properties, and we don't own them forever. And that would potentially also be true of a business within the mill. And so those are my concerns. I did take a look because, the term tasting room and wine bar, I don't know really the difference. So I did take a look at Hillyland in Scotland, which Sam had suggested was the most comparable. And I saw their opening hours of 12 to 5. Certainly not anywhere close to 11 to 10. And that was also for live music. I think I've attended live music there, and it's a delightful place, but live music and 12 to 5, and that's sort of what Sam asked us to compare it to. So there are my comments, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. Alexandra Konopka.
Yeah, Alexandra is my wife. I'm Zach Konopka.
Okay, Konopka, yes.
We live, there's the mill in the background. We live right next to the mill. We love living here. The mill is one of the reasons why we bought this house. But we have a few concerns over this proposal. One is, in just the time that we've been on this call, we've seen 7 or 8 cars drive down into that back parking lot that is directly behind our house. And there's no reason, there's no wine tasting going on. They're not fishing. They're not putting canoes into the river. Because we share a property line with the mill, I do have concerns over this increased traffic and what this means. We have complained to the state police many times about the activities that go on in the parking lot behind the house. It is not the people fishing. It's not the people dropping kayaks and canoes into the river. I did send an email earlier, and there's a list of all the things that we've cleaned up back there, all the different wonderful items. And on Saturday during the day, I do have to say that someone defecated in our backyard during the day, late hours between 11 and 7. Now, I'm not saying that any wine tasting people will be doing these activities, but there is going to be an increased traffic of people consuming alcohol as it starts to rain on my deck. Increased traffic of people consuming alcohol right along our property. At 2:30 this morning, I went outside because there was 2 people trying to break into cars all up and down the street. I don't think that the mill is going to increase criminal activity on our road, but I'm interested to hear what the plan is to curb these kind of activities taking place, because as a neighbor of the mill, we want the mill to be successful. We want the Schifrins to steward the mill for as long as possible. And these kinds of activities taking place will hurt their business. So those are our concerns, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Gina Pruitt.
Hi. Well, I've been around, and my family, there's been a Pruitt in this neighborhood for probably 60 something years at this point. I live on 90 Mansfield Hollow Road, and I remember when the mill was a mess and falling apart, and Schiffer's had done a fantastic job bringing it back, and I appreciate that. But I also have 2 small children, and we walk at the mill quite frequently. We love to go there and explore up by the dam, down by the water, by the waterfalls. We go there all the time. And I'm concerned with the late hours, as everyone has pointed out, that there's going to be some people who are going to be less than desirable. And with it being so close to the water, that's another concern. I know they have said about having Ubers and people like that to drive people who feel they're intoxicated. But I also know that sometimes people who are intoxicated don't think they are, and may want to go look at the river, may think it's pretty, because it's gorgeous. And I don't want to see other people get hurt. I'm curious what's going to happen there. Are they going to be confiscating people's keys? Will they be making sure that they're not driving home, even though they say they're fine, but they might be intoxicated? My children and I have had some close calls just walking up to the dam, and because of normal traffic. and not even having more traffic, a greater influx. So I have some concerns there. You know, we try to do everything we can, walk against traffic, walk on the side of the road. I make sure my kids know that if a car is coming close and they don't seem to see us, we step as far off as we can. But there is no sidewalks and there is no room to have sidewalks put in. And we would like to continue to use the park and enjoy our walks up there. And I'm just nervous. And again, as other people have said, maybe the shippers don't want to do any of that stuff that people have brought up. But who's to say, maybe later on they'll say, oh, we're not getting what we desired, what we hoped we would get. Maybe we need to change it again, modify it again, and make it more. I can see parking lights down in their back lot from my kitchen window. I can see the lights. I don't necessarily want to be hearing noises and all kinds of things like that. I like to have my windows open at night and enjoy the peace and quiet. I don't want to end up feeling like, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Catherine Leak.
Hi, Catherine Leak. I live at 77 Mansfield Hollow Road, so I'm just down from the dam. So my concern, you guys can hear me, right?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Yeah, so my concerns primarily really are the hours. I know people have repeated it again and again. I would like to see the wine tasting room keep the same hours as the park if possible. I mean, this road quietens down quite considerably after the park closes and we see almost minimal traffic. And we went through COVID and we had a lot of traffic during the day. So if the traffic gets moved to the day, I don't mind the traffic getting moved to the day. And I think most of the residents don't mind the traffic getting moved to the day.
What are the hours of the park?
The park closes at sunset. So
Sunset,
it actually varies during the year, and during the winter time it's closed, of course, a lot earlier, right? So we see almost minimal traffic after that. I'm also concerned about the safety as well too. We have a camera outside our house, for security reasons, and we regularly see people speed. In fact, we even gave the police some evidence of a motorcycle speeding down the road at one point in time. I've often had interactions with people at there's a tree, there's like a sign with like a little island at the end of my road as it goes towards Mansfield Hollow Dam. I've had people come through the wrong way and actually almost, they're on the wrong side of the road because they're unfamiliar with the road. So those are the kind of traffic concerns we also have as well on this road, speeding. And I kind of echo, somebody said something about speed bumps. Speed bumps would be an addition, even if this doesn't go through, because we definitely have people who think this is a 45-mile-an-hour zone and come down there from 195 and come all the way down, from that main road and come all the way down here and actually speed. So that's definitely a concern of mine. And also to echo some of the other concern, I'm concerned about, we grant this wine tasting room, what happens in the future? Somebody can buy the mill and take this and expand this permit in all kinds of different ways, going through, of course, permitting process with you. Is there any way we can limit this permit to the actual owner who's asking for it? I don't know if that's even a thing that the town can do. So some future owner doesn't take this and make it a great big party spot with wine tasting. And the Schifrins have already said that they're not going to do that, so that's good. But a subsequent owner could do exactly the same thing, and we would have no recourse because it's got a 99 room capacity. So that's also one of my concerns. And then additionally to that, there's the concern about adding live or amplified music. A lot of these homes, like the gentleman who talked to was in the White House that's right next to the mill. They're right up against the mill. I mean, I think I measured it out at maybe 20, 30 meters from, the mill center of the mill to their house. They would hear any amplified music that was inside the mill, and even down to even where I am at the intersection, you would definitely hear the music. So we are definitely concerned about any music permit that would be subsequently applied to this.
Okay.
I think that's all I have. Go on to the next one.
Thank you. Galadriel. I try to pronounce people's names correctly because I'm sensitive myself, but I don't get it right. Galadriel. Chilton.
Gadriel.
Gadriel. Okay.
Gadriel. It
Thank
rhymes
you.
with Gabrielle. And
Okay.
no worries. There's been lots of variations.
Okay.
So I'm Gladriel Chilton. I live at 8 Mansfield Hollow Road Extension. We've lived here since 2012. I run or walk past Kirby Mill every day, and I really appreciate the commission's time and service this evening. And I really appreciate Michelle and Sam for all of the work you've done and your commitment to preserving this historical treasure. It's beautiful. And what you've described as keeping the artifacts and the history alive for everyone is phenomenal. As an academic and a librarian, I appreciate that very much. A couple points so as to be as non-redundant as possible. And my concerns remain, as others have said, with the safety and also with the increased traffic. The Weston and Sampson parking assessment notes that Mansfield Hollow Road and Mansfield Hollow Road Extension are narrow. The assessment says they are approximately 20 feet wide. My own measurements of Mansfield Hollow Road near Kirby Mill are narrower by about 2.5 feet at 17.5 feet wide near 110 Mansfield Hollow Road and 17.25, 17.25 feet wide at 100 Mansfield Hollow Road. This road width leaves a very little space between two vehicles passing one another. When the roads were built, the cars weren't as big as they are today. The photos that I submitted via email today illustrate the width of the road, some of the curvature in the road as you approach Kirby Mill, the distance from some of the houses to the road, from 12 feet, 13 feet, 14.5 feet to the road. And there's an illustration of two cars passing quite closely. So the traffic is concerned. As others have mentioned, when the park closes, the traffic being a dead-end road drops to residents only, which is 7 homes and 10 apartments if you go past the intersection of Mansfield Hollow Road and Mansfield Hollow Road Extension. So any traffic to a wine tasting room after the park hours is an increase. And while the traffic study noted it was a low impact, I really want to emphasize the time of day, as others have said, that the after dark hours, especially with alcohol involved, are quite a concern. Our neighborhood speed limit is 25 miles per hour. Many drivers exceed this already. They don't come to a complete stop. They speed. And while I admire the Cheffrin's incredible vision for a high-class tasting room, just as the speed limit sign cannot guarantee that people will follow the speed limit, their incredible vision and their incredible, opening a high-class tasting room cannot guarantee the actions of those who patronize the Kirby Mill. So these concerns, I share, and they've also been shared by 36 Mansfield residents, 23 of which reside within half a mile of Kirby Mill. And though Kirby Mill is a town treasure, those of us that live in Mansfield Hollow treasure our homes, as well as safety and quiet. We too have invested significantly in our home, and we seek to preserve our neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. Are there any other hands? Linda, do you see any other hands raised?
I don't see any other hands raised. We do have some other folks that are present in the meeting who have not spoken. So I would say if they want to speak, now would be the time. I did just have to mute someone who called in who was not muted, so I can unmute them or ask them to unmute.
Okay, I see Kelly Barber raising her hand.
Hi there. Thank you
Hi.
for your time. Kelly Barber. I have property within 500 feet of Kirby Mill. My property is located between 54 and 78 on Mansfield Hollow Road. My family has had a long history with Mansfield Hollow. My dad grew up in one of the houses that are closely positioned on the road there. My family even restored one of the houses that used to be the old country store. And I enjoyed growing up in Mansfield. we own property there as well. I've enjoyed Mansfield. It's a very quiet, peaceful residential neighborhood. I've taken ownership of the property in Mansfield Hollow, and it's been very quiet, very pleasant. I primarily use that property for passive recreation and to escape the Cassidy Hill Vineyard traffic on my street. So I have direct experience with having a winery in a residential zone on a street, specifically on a dead-end road, which used to be an old carriage road, and I feel has similar characteristics to the roads in Mansfield Hollow. So having a winery on the street has directly impacted by customers consuming alcohol, has impacted our ability to enjoy our property, and we have concerns about safety, running, biking, and walking on the street. So even when you have good business owners, I'd like to share with you some examples of what could happen when you have people driving and drinking alcohol on your street. There's additional speeding. On my street specifically, they had to install multiple speed limit signs and a sharp corner sign. Within days of the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign that was put at the end of my driveway, it was run over and it had to be put back up, and cars continue to speed. Cassidy Hill, some specific examples of the Coventry Police, calls that were made into Coventry Police. Incident 19-3129, police received a call concerned with speeding vehicles up and down the road going to and from the winery. Incident 20-2489, customer called to complain about ongoing speeding. Incident 19-31-29, the police received a call saying with concerns of speeding vehicles. You also have intoxicated drivers, more examples of calls made to the police. Customer left and was intoxicated. Incident 1937-42, callers reported that a female was trying to leave the winery and was intoxicated and didn't know where they were. Incident 20-2489, complaint of ETOH, chronic alcoholic drivers leaving the vineyard. What else happens is neighbors start to take things into their own hands and try and take their own actions. Coventry Police Incident 16-3716, the Coventry Police received a report that an individual was attacking drivers. A man jumped into the road, waving his hands, trying to get people to slow down, and ended up slapping the vehicle. Incident 20-2864, customer called concerned about speeding cars. When the police officer went there, the caller that called it in reported was found jumping in front of cars, trying to yell at them and trying to wave them to slow down. Incident 21-2742, people called with concerns because they saw people speeding down their road and were disregarding cones. This one individual put out cones in the road to try and slow the traffic down. I don't think these examples are activities and behaviors that we want in Mansfield Hollow. One more quick note, since COVID, the residential neighborhoods have changed. More people are working from home, more people are staying home in Mansfield Hollow, where their homes are very close to the road and doing outdoor activities. When we make changes that impact the residential neighborhood, it has a bigger impact now because of these changes with COVID. And business customers with consuming alcohol is just not good for residential neighborhoods. I have personal experience and do not recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see.
Mr. Chair, you have a hand raised from Andra and David Gable.
Okay, you're recognized.
Hi, my name's Andrew Grable. I actually live at 97 Mansfield Hollow, which is right in front of the three-way stop signs. And I agree with everything that's been said today in the comments. I just wanted to add to that, because we live right at that three-way stop, we are constantly witness to people that do not stop at any of those stop signs. They come barreling down the hill from Bassett's Bridge. They go very, very fast, even if people are standing right there. We've had kids that are standing right there, my own children, myself, my husband, and that's without alcohol involved. That's without late hours, et cetera. That's just normal traffic for our area. So that, again, is concerning. And that even includes putting in brand new stop signs. So there really isn't anything that is deterring people or helping people to actually obey the traffic signals. And also in terms of music, I know there's been several times throughout the 5 years that we've been here that the group of cars that tend to stay in the parking lot behind the mill. If they have their music loud in their car, we can hear it all the way up to our house. So even if it's not a permitted piece, just the fact that there are people in cars who might have their music cranked, it is still a noise issue, and which would potentially be increased by more people being there and at the late hours. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask the individual who called in if they'd like to unmute.
Okay.
Like, you called in and you have area code 860 and your phone number ends in 921 and you'd like to speak, you will need to unmute yourself. We had to mute you when you first called in because of the feedback.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just had a quick question for Linda. How does one unmute from the phone when on Zoom? I don't know.
Good question. I think it's actually, I may be able to find that just because we sent the link out, and I think it's actually in the instructions from Zoom. So hold on and I will see if I can find those.
I think I'm unmuted now.
You are.
We can hear
Thank you.
I am. Thank you. My name is Ann Bladen, and I live at 88 Mansfield Hollow Road, actually designated as the oldest house in the Hollow. I've lived here for 11 years. It's a beautiful neighborhood. I love the mill. My land goes down to the water and borders the Konopkas. And given the number of people that are frequently behind the mill who are coming over onto the Konopkas land and my land and picking up the beer bottles and picking up the nips, that's a significant concern to me. The noise is a huge concern. We are in a hollow and the noise carries across the entire hollow. So people who are down in the parking lot, people who are down at the river, I can hear full conversations at my house. We also have significant concerns about the increased traffic and the hours, and those are simply things that people have already said, so I'm not going to belabor those points. I would like to just add that some of the things that have come out tonight from the Schifrins are details that were not shared with neighbors. There was never any indication that there was thoughts of a museum or sharing any of that. That seemed to only come out as there was some neighborhood pushback. So I'm concerned about what might come out as we continue to go along. I appreciate what the Schifrins have done for the neighborhood. I, again, live in a historic house. There was a house next to me that was in disrepair, that was falling down, that I actually purchased because I did not want it to turn into rentals. The people who live in this neighborhood care about the neighborhood tremendously. Mr. Schifrin, in one of his posts online, said that anyone who was upset about this knew exactly where they were moving into, that the mill was already here. I would just like to remind the Schifrins that they also knew that they were buying a property that was in the middle of a historic neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've come to the end of the comments.
So, Mr. Chair, if there are no other public comments, I will say traditionally the commission has given the applicant a chance to respond to comments that have been received.
Okay, yes. Would the applicant like to respond?
Yes, we would.
Okay.
Okay, so I would like to just answer some of these questions. First of all, Kelly Barber does not live on Mansfield Hollow Road. She lives near Cassidy Hill. Her property has no buildings on it, and it is not a place that she resides. I feel it's very unfair to compare us to Cassidy Hill. We have no intention to be at that chaotic level of anything. That is not our intentions. Also, Ann Bladen, just so that you know, Our ideas of the museum have been something that we have always furthered over the last 25 years. This is not in response to anyone's comments. It's something that we have always planned to do. That's why we have kept all the artifacts of the mill, and we've always wanted to be able to open it up. We have always opened the mill up to anyone who would like to see it. And we have done multiple tours with the Mansfield Historical Society and the Woolmantic Mill Museum. And we have always made it available. And this is a way to make it even more available to people. I agree, speed bumps would be a good idea on that road. I understand your concerns. It is a narrow road. People do not stop, and speed bumps. And we also have told multiple residents that if there's issues in our back parking lots or on any of our property, please call the state police. I personally have asked the state police to come in multiple times and to just come through the parking lots, and don't allow people to be in our back parking lots all the time. We have had broken windows, multiple broken windows. Last April, we had a huge garbage dump of construction debris that we had to remove, cost us over $700 to remove. A lot of this is because the place is vacant and it's not being used, and people know it's an opportunity and a place that they can go and they can do whatever they want. I cannot completely stay there all the time, but the more we use it, the less of this activity will go on. And that's a big part of why we need to have the mill opened up and used. The more people that drive into that parking lot and with bad intentions or activities, it's just going to continue when it seems to be empty. And this is a big part of why we want to make it opened up and use the mill. You have to understand that when we restored the mill back in 1997, we could have had 82 people in that mill coming and going 4 times a day. And at the height, we had 50 to maybe 55 people doing that. And that was up until 2015. Okay. And we never had a complaint from a neighbor at that time. And it sounds like a lot of you people were in the neighborhood at that time. So now what we're talking about is similar to that. So we're not increasing the traffic. I do agree that there is people who don't drive properly. Well, that's something to take up with the town. That's something to take up with the police. We cannot enforce the laws on public roads. And the more activities that are going on at the mill, the less there will be bad people coming into our parking lots and to keep people out. I mean, this is near and dear to our hearts, and we have put our entire lives into this, 25 years. And a lot of you people say that you absolutely appreciate what we have done. I find that as to be very empty words. I'm sorry, but that's very empty words, because you're not helping us to save the mill. And that's where we are today. And we're not telling anybody that we're going to sell it, but you may push us into that situation where to save it, that may be what has to be done. Otherwise, it will go back to demise. The other thing that I do want to point out, you talk about tasting room times. It was very interesting how you just picked certain places. I have a list here. So there's Arrowhead in Franklin. They have, their hours are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturdays, 12 to 6, Thursdays and Fridays, 12 to 8. And then on Sundays, they have scheduled events. Okay. Hearthstone is Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 7, Fridays, 12 to 9. Preston Ridge, Fridays and Saturdays, 12 to 8, Sundays, noon to 4:30. Priam, one of you mentioned that they're only open 11 till 5, but what you didn't say was that they hold events on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays from either 6 to 8 or 7 to 9. So their hours are in the evenings on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. They just happen to be events. Sometimes it's concerts, sometimes it's comedy shows. Sharp Hill is 11 to 5, that is correct. They also have a restaurant, and that you didn't mention any of their posting of their hours for their restaurant. Taylor Brook, Thursday and Saturdays until 7:30 at night, Fridays until 8:30 at night. Scotland, the Hilly Land Vineyard, Fridays 3 to 8, Saturday, Sundays 12 to 5. So there's plenty of these wineries that are open till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And as far as being open until sunset, well, then that means that tonight, for instance, we would have been open till 8:30, almost 9 o'clock, and through the entire summer till about 9 o'clock. So just please keep that in mind, that, you know, the more you shorten the hours, the less it makes it feasible for this type of an event, of a business venture. And
Okay,
that's really all I
thank
have to say.
Thank you. So at this point, we can either close the hearing or continue the hearing. So what's the, what opinions does the commission have on that? Vera, I'm sure you have an opinion.
Thank you. I just wondered if we wanted to get our own traffic study. And if we did, we have to keep it open because we can't get information after we close it. Just a thought. I just wondered, rather than just relying on the one traffic study for the applicant.
Linda, is that something we could do?
So pursuant to the Code of Ordinances, yes, it is something that would then be a cost for the applicant. We would have to go out and get proposals from our on-call consultants to do that. So, but Vera is correct that if that's something the commission wants to do, the hearing would need to remain open. And to me, and I also want to be clear that the only thing that we would be retaining a consultant to do is to review the traffic report that was prepared by Weston and Sampson and the applicant. It would not be to do a traffic study. So there's no new counts. It is literally a peer review of what has been submitted by the applicant. It's not an actual traffic study. So I just wanted to clarify it's a peer review of what has been presented.
Yeah, Bino.
And the consultants, can we select one that we've already, the on-call list that we have, can we select one from the on-call list?
So the one issue with that is our peer review list expires in a few days. So we do not have, it expires on Friday. So to do this, we would literally have to kind of send something out. And I don't think this is one that takes a long time to get a proposal on, to be honest. It's something that we would have to do quickly. And then have a special meeting of the commission later this week to accept that proposal. Otherwise, we would do essentially a more formal request for proposals that would be open to any firms. I will say that there is a committee that's working on this. Unfortunately, due to the number of applicants and interviews, we are not going to be finished with that until the June 6th meeting.
Vera, if the reason for a study is to simply kick the can down the road, maybe we should rethink that. I'm pretty clear about the situation. They're narrow roads going through houses close to each other. We have a pretty good idea of the number of cars. You know, I think it's a tough decision. I think I'm not sure what would be added by someone telling us that it's a narrow road going close to houses. I think we already know that.
I know. It just seems to be one of the major problems that they're already experiencing. So it seems like an added burden.
Yeah, Well, that's something that we have to struggle with. Dorian.
I'm not sure this is going to be helpful, so I would be comfortable closing it.
I mean, I'm not adamant about it myself. I just threw it out there and I can see the reasons. It's gonna take a while for us to get this done, I think.
Any other comments?
There is one other comment. I mean, can we in our I can't think of the right word, in our added requests, or not just requests, but in our added points in a special permit, can we ask for a repeat traffic study to evaluate how it's going? Or is
So Vera, you're saying if the commission were to approve it, could you approve it on the condition of basically a post-operation?
Right. I mean, I don't know how you can tell until you do it. To be honest with you, I don't know how you can tell until you do it.
I think so. I can think of one other instance where the commission has done that. You did that with the elementary school when you approved a special permit for that. To basically, the one difference that I will note is that in that case with the elementary school, there was proposed mitigation. So essentially the traffic study did identify impacts, and there were different methods of mitigation considered. And the commission essentially said, okay, yes, you can go with this mitigation plan, but we want to have a traffic study afterwards to see if that mitigation was sufficient. So it was really related to the actual mitigation measures, and that if the mitigation did not have the desired effect and improvements on traffic flow, that you could then come back and require a higher level of mitigation related to those impacts. So again, I think that's the one thing I'd have to talk to the town attorney. I think this question came up recently with another one, and I believe his answer was no. Because in that case, it was, you've approved the use. So I think it came up with regard to the standard at Four Corners, if I'm not mistaken. And that was a question of, can we do a follow-up traffic study? And the answer was no, because again, it wasn't related to mitigation. In that case, there is not going to be a significant impact. There was no mitigation for that project. Therefore, there is no point to having someone come back and do a follow-up traffic study because it's not something that, at that point you've approved the use. So I can ask the town attorney again regarding this particular application.
Well, the other thing is, can we restrict it to the same time as the park closing at sunset?
So
operating hours.
As part of conditions of approval, the commission can specify conditions on operating hours, capacity, et cetera. Yes.
So is there a consensus to close the hearing?
I would say so.
Katie? Okay. Would someone like to make that motion?
Ward moves that the public hearing be closed.
Okay.
Chandy seconds.
Moved by Ward, second by Chandy. All in favor? I believe that's everyone unanimously. The hearing is closed at 8:08 p.m. And I never give people more than 2 hours without a break. So I think it's time for a break. No? Did you say no, Linda? Oh, no. Okay. I thought you were shaking your head. Okay.
No, I'm just taking notes, Paul.
Okay. I just taking notes. Okay. So what would be appropriate? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. 5-minute break.
like to make a mention that I am now on to chopped ice, but it melts faster than normal ice. So as we're trying, it all melted during our meeting. So
I finished 2 of these. 2 glasses full of chopped ice.
Paul, you're muted. I apologize. I had to mute some of you because there were some dogs barking during our 5-minute break. So anyone that didn't have their microphone muted when you left, I turned it off for you.
Okay, all right, good. So we're back at 8:16. So Champaign has withdrawn completely. What's the story there, Linda?
They received their first set of comments from our peer review consultants, and we also had a discussion with them at a staff level on some items. And essentially, I think we're seeing that the time it was going to take to address those comments was not something that they really had, given how long this had been deferred. So I think the withdrawal was primarily due to timing issues, and I would expect to see that resubmitted at some point.
Okay, all right. We didn't scare them away completely.
No.
Okay.
I do have.
And someone wants to continue a public hearing.
Yes, so that is Mr. Celestri. So I will know, and I think Vera may have asked at the last meeting whether we needed an extension. For the record, when we contacted Mr. Celestri regarding the application, he asked us to put this off until the second meeting in June. So I'm considering that a grant of an extension since he requested that specific.
But we do need to.
You do, and so I'm going to share a continuation motion. You need to open it and continue. So.
We have to formally open it? Well, because it
was
here. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we open the public hearing at 8:18 regarding the special permit application of Alex Celestri to use a second floor of a building at 365 Stores Road. All members are present, including alternates who are not seated tonight.
So I'll move that Ward moves to continue the public hearing on the special permit application for 365 Stores Road to June 21st, 2022 at 6 p.m. via virtual meeting.
Moved by
Plant seconds it.
Plant second by Plant. All in favor?
Wait.
Oh, okay.
The 21st? Not the 20th?
So, and I'm going to ask Sandy to correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe that your meeting is scheduled for June 21st because Juneteenth is now a holiday recognized by the town. And therefore, since that falls on a Sunday, it will be celebrated on Monday, the 20th. So your schedule for your second meeting in June is, I believe, is officially scheduled for June 21st.
21st. Okay.
That's correct, Linda.
Thank you, Sandy.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, under old business, we're back to the tasting room. All right. So now we can have a discussion of that amongst ourselves. Who would like to go first? Yes, go ahead, Dorian.
Actual tasting room, but I think we need to establish that will be no entertainment. And I also think we should establish hours that are not so late in the day. And I don't know of any winery I've been to that were open.
The last one's faded away. That open what? That late, did you say?
I don't know of any winery I've been to that are open every day of the week.
Uh-huh, you're right.
I think starting maybe like 11:30 to like 7 or 8 specific dates, like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then Saturday you can do a little longer, and I don't think Sunday should be open late. And having it at 10 o'clock at night, I don't think that's.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants the 10 o'clock. Luann, did you have your hand up? Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Dorian. I think in general, this seems like a reasonable use of this facility, but the conflict seems to be over hours and over what will be allowed. So I would suggest that if we approve this, we limit hours. I think it's not a good idea to peg it to the park closing at dusk, because that means the time is changing every day, and that's a little confusing. And it also means it would be open quite late in the summer. So I think 10 is too late. I think 9 is too late. The only wineries that seem to be open that late are ones that are having events, which we specifically are not going to allow. So I think that either we need to set a time for 7 p.m., possibly 8 on Saturdays or Sundays, and see if that is acceptable. But the needs of the community really need to come first. I would like to see the town try to, or the residents of the area try to address the town council or the engineering department to think about speed bumps, if that's something that people are in favor of, that they think would be helpful. It sounds like the problems on the road are existing already. Whether they would be exacerbated by this is really hard to know. It seems like the kind of people that go to wineries are not necessarily the kind of people who you might find at your local bar getting drunk at the weekends. So the clientele may not necessarily be the kind of people that you would be very concerned about having in your neighborhood. But that remains to be seen. So I think that's kind of where we're sort of standing on this. And whatever we can do, I think as a commission to try to limit the impact would be advisable.
I think we should start, I think someone should start right now taking care of that back parking lot so that the trouble doesn't exacerbate when there's more activity. I mean, their theory is the more activity, the less trouble, but I really think they ought to clean their act up now and take better care of that problem. That's nothing we can legislate, but it's just a theory. I think that you should work on that now.
Katie?
I agree with Vera and I agree with Luann. I want to set the dates, set the times that they can be open. And I do agree that there is definitely a problem there. If the neighbors are having to file all these complaints and pick up trash and stuff. I also want to point out, if they have a wine tasting and they have a liquor license, they are responsible if somebody over imbibes and drives. They could lose that liquor license if that person is stopped for drinking and driving or being under the influence. So they're going to have to be very careful about that. Granted, it's not a bar, and wine tastings, yeah, it's sips, it's not drinking a whole glass of wine. And again, we have an open bottle law, I think, that if they buy any bottles, it has to be in the back seat of the trunk, that they don't have access to it. We can't control that. But I definitely think the times need to be limited and something needs to be addressed with the problems, with all of the problems that are going on in that area. That it's not acceptable that people have to clean up trash after people are having a party out in the backyard.
So do you like the 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock hours that Luann proposed?
Yes, I wouldn't want it any later than 8 o'clock. And I don't think you'll get too many of the tourist type people going to a wine tasting at 8 o'clock at night. Most of them at that time, if they're tourists, they want to go someplace and have supper and be getting settled in for the night. So I would go it to 8, but no later.
What about the number of days per week? I thought that was an interesting comment. One thing we could perhaps do would be to limit it to 5 days instead of 7. They choose the days. Yeah, Bino.
I think they propose the days, right? I'm not sure if we can, suggest something else, because I'm not, Linda may have to comment on that, but I wouldn't limit. Looks like they have proposed based on a model for success. So I don't know if reducing the numbers of days will help that. I agree with everyone else. The 3 main issues are the time, and those close at 8 would be good. And they said that if somebody wants to finish their glass of wine, give them some extra time. So no more new people after 8. Then the second issue was the traffic, speed bumps. Maybe the local residents themselves may not be too happy about speed bumps. Maybe other traffic calming measures, signs with signs showing children are at play, or some other creative methods maybe. And what was the third issue again? I forget. I think there was a concern about music or sound. So I don't know how that can be controlled. Because
well, we can put in the, we can say there's no music.
They haven't requested for that.
They haven't requested it. Okay. Linda, can we say no music if they haven't requested music?
So a couple of things, just first to answer Renee's first question in terms of hours and days. So, with special permits, you do have the ability to add additional conditions and safeguards. It provides a list that is including but not limited to, and one of them, or E under that listing, is limitations of size, number of occupants, methods, or time of operation or extent of facilities. So I would say you do have some flexibility in terms of those conditions. With regard to live and or amplified music, one of the things that I did address in my memo was that it was not specifically requested by the applicant. I know that there had been some questions or comments that we had heard about from members of the public regarding that. And currently, this is not a use where live and or amplified music is permitted as accessory. So when it comes to live and amplified music, that is only permitted as accessory to certain uses, and wine manufacturing is not one of them. So
that's already covered.
It's covered. So this is what I would say is it is covered by the regulations today. If the regulations were to change currently, if for example the commission changed that list of uses in the future, then it's a zoning permit. There would be no additional there would be no review by the commission unless you included it in your conditions and said if you want to add music at a later date, you would need to come back. So that would be the one thing I would say is it's not currently allowed by the regulations at all, but that's something that can always change. And so if that's something you feel strongly about, you would need to address it in the actual approval if you were going to approve it.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Has DEEP and or the Army Corps been notified of this potential change? Because they would be neighbors as well, right?
If they were within 500 feet, they would have received a notice.
Okay. Mansfield Hollow has so much trash right now as it is. And I worry a little bit about there's wine tasting, but then there's also purchasing of bottles, and there's nothing to stop someone from taking bottles over to Mansfield Hollow and drinking, even if, there's plenty of places to hide. So,
but aren't you recused from this?
No, I can voluntarily not be recused, correct?
it's your decision. I would say, however, you're not seated. So
Yeah,
the
I'm not
public-
seated,
The
so-
public hearing is closed, so at this
Yeah.
point, you, as an alternate that's not seated, you can't participate in the discussion at this point by the commission's bylaws.
Okay.
Any other comments? Yes, Sarah.
So, their other big concern was that the current owners say they're doing this. We could write this in such a way that if they sell it, the new owners have to abide by the same, they would. So we just have to be really clear about how we write this.
Yeah, anyone who owns it would have to follow whatever
right.
Whatever restrictions we put on it. So one thing we could do is we could have someone, I think oftentimes when we have an issue like this, we have someone write a motion for the next meeting. That's one of the possibilities. Since it does have some complex issues going on, or if someone wants to write in opposition also. Is that the way commission would like to go, or would you like to decide tonight all the details? Vera?
I think that we probably don't need one necessarily in opposition, but I do think we need to have discussion on the motion once it's presented to make sure it falls into all these things we'd like it, all the conditions that we'd like it to meet.
Are you volunteering to write it?
I'll volunteer to work with the staff on this.
Okay. I have a volunteer, Linda, to write it.
All right, Vera, we'll be talking.
Okay.
Okay, we can move on to some other topic.
So, Mr. Chair, the next item on your agenda, just before I forget, is the standard at Four Corners modification. They did email late this afternoon and ask for that to be tabled.
Okay.
It took us a while to work with and get a motion together with the town attorney, and they have asked for time to really understand what that proposed motion is. So that is item B under old business.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. Item C, that's tabled as well. That's Champagne. D is also tabled, right? So
Actually, C is withdrawn.
Withdrawn.
So that was on the agenda.
Right,
I
right,
apologize. I should have taken the tabled until public hearing is closed off. It was actually withdrawn.
And D is tabled.
D is tabled. So you're on to new business item A, which Jennifer is going to present.
Okay. Have the floor, Jen.
Good evening. Let's see, I put a staff memo in your packet, and I believe we have the person who is making the request. We have a request of Mr. Zach England to remove barberry within a conservation easement. He's the owner of 1926 Stores Road, and he's requesting to remove this invasive species on a portion of his property that contains a conservation easement that's held by the town, and it's associated with a subdivision, Woodwood Acres subdivision, that was approved in 2008. So I've outlined how this can happen. There is, per the conservation easement, that no vegetation removal and many other restrictions are allowed without permission from the grantor, or from the grantee rather. And so he's coming and asking if he can do this. And Mr. Englund, would you like to say anything about this request of yours?
Sure, I'm not aware how much context is necessary, but the gist of it is that there is a conservation easement on my property, and the property is overrun with Japanese barberry, which is an invasive species that chokes out native ecology. It spreads out in forest understory. It leaves out before other plants do in the spring. It retains its leaves longer in the fall. So it outcompetes native shrubbery. It's also spiny and poisonous to deer, so deer won't eat it. But I think most concerningly, it dramatically increases the risk of contracting Lyme disease in a given area. The University of Connecticut Working Group on Invasive Species found that the presence of Lyme disease carrying ticks is up to 15 times higher in areas that have uncontrolled barberry infestations versus areas that don't. And so it's very important to me. I have a 2-year-old son who likes to run around outside. It's very important to me to keep him safe and healthy. So in addition to the ecological concerns, there's a serious public health concern here. I wrote to Ms. Kaufman asking for help from the town, given that it's the town's easement, and the town has a vested interest in protecting these environmental systems. And Ms. Kaufman told me that the town isn't willing to give any help, and that I need to come to all of you to get permission to go do the work myself, which I'm willing to do, but very frustrated, because I think that this is a very burdensome process. And I've learned that there are over 100 of these conservation easements in the town, and not once has anyone come up to ask for permission to go remove invasive species, which means that these invasive species, if you drive around, they're running amok. And we don't really have, as near as I can tell, a plan or a strategy or even any encouragement to go contain them. And so I'm here as a first order to ask permission and pay a fee to go do very hard labor to remove these plants. I'm here as a second order to voice that I think this is a very convoluted and Byzantine system that is being counterproductive to protecting ecological systems.
Your point is well taken. I think that would be a town council decision to actually pay for the removal. It's above our pay grade, but what we can do is give you permission to cut it down. That's the best we can offer here. But I understand your frustration, and I would direct you to the town council for assistance on that.
Yeah, I would register, or I would pose the question of how we evaluate the success of these ecological easements. And I would venture that we don't.
Jennifer, what's your opinion on this subject?
Well, we have many easements in town. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission, as you know, mainly through the subdivision process, accepts easements as part of the open space dedication. When a person subdivides their land, the commission has the authority to accept up to 40%, depending on whether it's a cluster subdivision or what have you. So we do have many conservation easements throughout town. These easements are on private property though, and so the way an easement works is that the person owns the property, and the town has certain has certain restrictions to that. So many of the easements are written so that you can't remove invasives, or they're just, they don't really speak to invasives specifically. They just say you can't remove any vegetation and they have to be kept in their natural state forever. They're kind of like a forever wild easement. I think moving forward, we're going to have to look at that and allow for the removal of invasive species. You know, these have been written back in the early, mid 2000s, and things have changed. However, this is on private property, so I think the town is going to have to really look at what resources we have available to provide town resources to assist private landowners to control these type of species. We have them in the parks. They're all over the place, and it's a hard issue to deal with. But so that really is a town council issue if they want to start putting resources, giving resources to private property owners to manage manage their property.
I guess the best we can do is encourage you and applaud you and try to make it as easy as possible from our side.
I do think that I think you're right. I think that is what you can do, is make it as easy as possible, which I should point out is not this, right? Is not.
This is not as easy as it could be.
Correct. At a minimum, there should be a form. Yeah, if you a place on the website, you have an easement, you want to remove invasive species, here's what you do,
and that's something maybe in reg review, maybe that's something we could have Jennifer decide on and not bring before the whole commission.
Mr. Chair, I think just one of the issues that we may have to consult with the town attorney on this is because so many of these easement documents exist that specify that your approval is necessary. I'm not sure how we change all of those documents. And I think so that it's probably a discussion with the town attorney. I think, as Jennifer said, this is something it needs to be revisited because, I'm going to venture a guess that when our model easement document was drafted, folks weren't thinking about invasive species and the fact that we were essentially kind of putting property owners who want to do the right thing through through an intensive process just to do the right thing. And so I think it's just going to be a question of legally, how do we deal with all of these easements in legal documents that are recorded on the land records that specify the commission's approval is necessary, and whether or not there's an action you can take. For example, can the commission just unilaterally say, if you're dealing with invasive species, that is something that you are delegating to, to staff.
Yeah, similar to an agent approval for inland wetlands, but right. The tricky part is that you are holding the Planning and Zoning Commission is responsible for making sure that the terms of these easements are upheld, right? So somehow there has to be a way for you to look at that if someone is asking for. There has to be an easy way for someone to ask for permission, but it still has to be monitored. So, what I advise Mr. Englund to do and what he did, and he did a great job explaining it, is just to write me a letter with a map detailing how he plans to remove the invasives. And then I have prepared, however you want to handle this, but I have prepared a motion which would allow him to do that. One little caveat, however, is that the Japanese barberry is in the wetlands and in the upland review area. So I'm just going to have to work with him on that. And that perhaps is either an agent approval. There is a fee for an agent approval, or there may be a section of the regulations, the inland wetlands regulations, where we can do a jurisdictional ruling, because this may fall under conservation. So we will work with that. And then Mr. Englund and I can get some more details, and we can come back and from the wetland side on January 6th. I'm sorry, June 6th, when you have your next meeting.
So, but we do have a motion we can pass tonight, right?
Yes, you do.
Okay. All right. Would someone like to put that forward?
I have a comment though before we do this. And my comment is that Mr. Anglin sounds like he knows what he's doing and he can identify barberry. But part of the problem of making this just a form or just easy is that not everyone necessarily can identify what an invasive species is. And so there should be some form of oversight, and perhaps that would be a walkthrough with the Conservation Commission, something that's not terribly onerous for those people that that have a plan and know what they're doing. But I could see this being improperly used to remove things that are not invasive, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that's a good point. Your point is well taken.
Yeah.
But we have this narrow thing to do tonight. Would someone like to put that forward?
I can put it forward.
Thank you, Dorian.
Plant moves to grant permission to the property owners of the Wynwood Acres subdivision, PZC file 1229-2, to remove Japanese barberry within the boundaries of the conservation easement filed in volume 674, page 235 of Mansfield's land records, and shown on the boundary plan dated March 31st. That says 3008.
2008, sorry.
2008.
Yeah.
Revised through 12/12/2008. Filed in book 37, page 70 in the Mansfield Land Records. All removal shall be in accordance with the best practices outlined by the Connecticut Invasive Plant Working Group. If herbicides are used, necessary permits shall be obtained. The entity undertaking the removal shall confer with the Mansfield Inland Wetlands agent to ensure compliance with the Mansfield Inland Wetlands and Watercourses regulations. This action is based on the finding that the removal of invasive species upholds the purpose of the conservation easement, which is to protect in perpetuity significant natural features and to minimize the environmental impact of activities associated with land development in the town of Mansfield.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you for bringing that to the commission, and thank you for helping us understand that issue better.
Thank you.
So we have to, next item on the agenda is to receive an application to amend zoning regulations. So this is a receipt motion.
I can do that one.
Okay, thank you.
I move to receive the application of BPOZ 1750 Stores LLC and CMC Stores SPV LLC to amend the zoning regulations to establish a mixed-use center transition zoning district, PZC file 1377, to refer to staff for review and comment, and to schedule a public hearing in accordance with statutory requirements.
Moved by Cooley.
Second by Ward.
Second by Ward. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes unanimously. And then we have the peer review consultant for that. But that's a motion that'll come on a different day, right?
No, we do have a motion for you.
Okay.
So we did receive a proposal from Tyche Policy and Planning Group, and that was one of the late additions to your packet today. So just kind of an FYI for the commission, Tyche Policy and Planning is not part of your on-call list. However, they are the consultant that has been retained to help with the rewrite of the zoning regulations. So for those on the Regulatory Review Committee, you may recall that originally you had selected CME, which became CHA. It was specifically tied to two individuals at that firm who have since broken out and started their own firm, Tyche Policy and Planning. So that is how we got from point A to point B. Because this does involve amendments to the zoning regulations, which is a fairly specific and unique type of review, staff has recommended that you, subject to the approval of the Director of Finance, authorize retaining Tyche as opposed to using our standard on-call list, just because, again, they are going to be working on the overall rewrite, and therefore, in staff's opinion, is the best suited to provide assistance in reviewing the proposed amendments. And if you could, I do have a motion.
Okay. Who would like to put that forward?
I'll do that one.
Okay, thank you.
Accorsi moves to authorize staff to engage the services of Tyche Policy and Planning Group to assist the Planning and Zoning Commission in its review of PZC file P1377, application of BPOZ 1750 Stores LLC to amend the zoning regulations to establish a mixed-use center transition zoning district pursuant to their proposal dated May 16th, 2022. Pursuant to section 122-13 of the Mansfield Code of Ordinances, the applicant shall be responsible for all expenses associated with this review. The commission acknowledges that Tyche is not on the on-call list for PZZ services. However, the firm has been selected to assist the commission in the rewrite of the zoning regulations. Accordingly, the commission believes that Tyche Policy and Planning Group is best suited to assist in review of the proposed amendments to the zoning regulations, and therefore requests approval from the Director of Finance to use this firm in lieu of firms on the on-call list.
Moved by Accorsi.
Ward.
Second by Ward.
Just one correction.
Yeah.
I just wanted to note that we did have, through a letter that was submitted by the applicant late today, there's a co-applicant on this, which is CMC Stores SPD. And while I corrected that in the previous motion, we just need to include it in here as well. So we would add CMC Stores SPV LLC to the motion, if that's okay.
That's okay.
I accept that.
Okay.
I accept it.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. And we're getting to the end of Linda's last meeting. Oh, what are we gonna do?
Life is going to go on. You will all be fine.
Do we know who is going to be interim?
So I think there will be an announcement forthcoming shortly.
Okay, so nothing
So-
official yet.
We had a meeting on it today, so I just don't know if I'm authorized to publicly say anything yet.
Okay, and by Wednesday, you'll be authorized to say where you're going.
By Wednesday, I can share where I'm going, yes.
Okay, all right. We'll get this all straightened out.
So,
Well, thank you so much for all you've done the last 11 years.
Yes.
well, I want to thank all of you because it has just been my incredible honor and privilege to work with you for 11 years. And this was a really hard decision for me. But ultimately, I'm going to miss you all. And, you never know. I might, I might pop in every once in a while to
Please
just
do.
check in and see how things are going. So, but I know that I'm leaving you in incredible hands with Jennifer, Jolene, and Sandy. And I have every confidence that there's going to be another great director here very soon, and everything is going to go on, and it's all good. So thank you all so much for your support over the last 11 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Oh. Do we have any other business that we need to transact?
We need that wine tasting room right now.
Yes, we need that, but it won't be open. Not this late.
Right.
Okay, so we are adjourned at 8:55 p.m. on May 16th.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Bye,
so
Linda.
much.
Good-
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Look, Linda.
Bye.
Bye, Linda.
Bye.
Enjoy your new job.